My name is Lily. Welcome to Crave the Podcast. This week we are in our second week of our bracket challenge. It's going to be even longer than the last episode, so we're looking at 4 or 5 hours for this one. So buckle in. Maybe you're on a long car ride. That's great. But yeah. So why don't we introduce ourselves just for old time's sake? Zach, you want to go first?
Is there a question we're answering this time?
Ooh.
Favorite pie.
Pot? Favorite
pot?
Pie.
Pie. Yeah. Pie. Favorite pie. Mm-hmm.
Favorite pie. Me. I'm Zach. Hello. Favorite pie. Oh, I'm always just looking for a nice pumpkin, but apple is always good as well. Can't go wrong there.
Sorry, I don't know if the question was unclear, but I did say one pie. So.
Okay, fine. A pumpkin apple pie. You happy?
Never.
Okay, pumpkin pie then.
Okay, now I'm happy. You did it, Zach. Reilly, do you want to go?
Yes. Hi, I'm Reilly. And my favorite pie is probably the first time I had cherry pie was Thanksgiving, so it's my new favorite. I like cherry pie.
It's my dinner. I don't even know if you heard that. Let's see, Jake.
Hello, I am Jake, and I am also going to say cherry pie.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
Kalyan?
Yeah, I'm Kalyan, and I got to go with strawberry rhubarb, though I will say the apple pie at the C4C, I don't know if you guys have ever had it. That is a great pie. That is a great apple pie.
I don't trust that.
It's actually really good. You can ask them to warm it up and put some ice cream with it. Tips and tricks.
What do you think of those like fried apple pies from McDonald's?
Oh, those are so
Because those are good.
Mm-hmm.
They're
They're
cheap.
so hot. They just
They're
burn
cheap.
your mouth.
Yeah, it's like lava.
Yeah. You're a child.
But yeah, strawberry rhubarb is my final answer.
I'll accept that. Only Zach failed me this time, but
As always.
yes, we will continue the episode.
Wait, what's your favorite pie?
Oh, I'm Lily, and my favorite pie is also probably cherry, maybe a blackberry. I know I said one pie, but I'm hosting, so I make the rules. Zach, would you like to share the bracket?
Not after you did me like that. I need a quick cry break before we get into this, please.
Zach can cry. We'll look at the bracket. So up this week, we have To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar versus Pinata by Freddy Gibbs. And then next, we have Puberty 2 by Mitsky versus Circles by Mac Miller. And then Evil Friends by Portugal the Man versus Melodrama by Lorde. And then our Kanye Face-Off, My Dark Twisted Fantasy and Life of Pablo. Oh, can we start with Kanye? Can we go from the bottom up? I have a lot of feelings about Kanye that I want to get out of my chest before we get into the other ones.
I wonder if anyone that we don't know will ever listen to this and base our entire personalities based off of the questions at the beginning of episodes.
We are influencers now, so I think there's a pretty high chance.
Do you think that based off the questions at the start of these episodes, someone get an accurate representation of who you are?
Yeah, I think everybody hates me.
Just like real life, so yeah, okay.
But they don't
I listened to the 3 Cheese clip literally 5 times in a row. It's so fun.
Hey, you guys can't complain. I'm giving us content, okay?
Kalyan's my favorite pie is chicken pot.
That's a missed opportunity right there.
Roll it back.
Roll it back. Let's see what
So, I have dyslexia, and therefore I'm terrible at reading aloud. But I'm going to send in the chat what Jivan said about My Dark Twisted Fantasy if one of you kind, beautiful people would be so nice as to read this for me.
I can read it if you want. I did I did Pablo, so let's start with Dark Fantasy. So Jivan sent this in to us, and he wrote that he likes it because Kanye is my favorite artist of all time, and this album best represents why. His ability to mix genres and styles while maintaining his bold personality makes Kanye stand out to me. The album flows incredibly well and does a great job of balancing his ego with his internal struggles. I believe more than a piece of music, this album is a work of art. It tells a story of a man who has lost his image and his fame to his own actions and how he can gain that back by continuing to innovate. The album has something for everyone, and artists from Jay-Z to Elton John and Bon Iver make great appearances. There is nothing that can make this album more of a masterpiece, and for that reason, in my opinion, it is the best album of the last decade.
What song was Elton John on?
And his little blurb for this is my
All of the
beautiful
Lights.
Breakfast Fantasy. Oh, he's on All the Lights?
That makes sense. There are a lot of people on that song.
Okay. Yeah, I think Rihanna's in there too, right?
Yeah, Rihanna, John Legend, Kid Cudi, a lot of people.
All right, let me just read Jivan's blurb. He says, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is Kanye West's magnum opus. In 2010, after being exiled from society due to the VMA incident where West interrupted Taylor Swift, Kanye fled to Hawaii to record the album that would eventually save his career. West brought in hundreds of collaborators and friends, perfectly assembling them on an album that demonstrates what Kanye does best, be Kanye. The record is maximalism at its finest, demonstrating West's knack for sampling and his ability to layer vocal harmonies as part of an instrumental. The rapping on the album is top-notch, with every song being full of allusions and symbolism. His ego shines through, as it always does. However, West always shows signs of humility on songs like Runaway and Blame Game. The album is truly a work of art and transcended what hip-hop can be in a modern era. For Life of Pablo, my little blurb was Kanye West's seventh studio album was released in early 2016, featuring a range of sounds and marked the permanence of the new Kanye sound moving forward. That's partially my opinion. I think it's debatable. And I said that I like it because T-Lop is undeniably, nope, let me start over. I can't read today either. So Lily, you probably would have done a better job. Why I like it. T-Lop undeniably represents a defining moment in 2010's music. Kanye West's brash and unapologetic lyrics mixes with his unrivaled production abilities and creates a distinct yet familiar body of work. Coinciding with the 2016 election and giving birth to many pop culture references and even memes that in many ways normalized new Kanye's unique approach to the music creation process. Though we had hints of his manic ego and the underlying bipolar disorder in previous albums, T-Lop made it apparent that Kanye was suffering the effects of something deeper than the general public was aware of, though it would take a couple more albums for us to learn of the specific diagnosis that he claims. T-Lop for me represents a shift in music, in the music industry, that allowed rap and pop to blend and become a mainstream sound for artists who subscribed to both spheres and made it acceptable for mainstream artists to work outside of the status quo.
Very well said. Yeah, that's really why I was intimidated. I looked at the length of them and I said, I don't think I can read that. So thank you, Kalyan. Do you want to go first? Do you want to tell us your, I'm sure, strong opinions for God knows which album? It's very unclear at this point.
Yeah. I'll go first.
Can I really quickly ask a question? This is what I was going to bring up last week, but since we didn't get to this half of the bracket, I didn't. No, I'm pretty sure Jivan put his in first, right? If Jivan did not say if Jivan had not put in Fantasy, would you have put in, I guess that's kind of a spoiler. Would you have put in Fantasy or Pablo?
That's what I was going to say first. I definitely lean towards Fantasy, personally. I think it has more to do with kind of Kanye's resurgence in kind of the pop culture sphere. And it's definitely just, to me, it's a more cohesive album all the way through. It feels like there's a lot more intention behind every single feature, sound, song, lyric. There's just a lot more intention in Fantasy. But at the same time, I think Pablo is a pretty close second, at least in the Kanye discography for me, because like I said in my blurb, like it coincided with so many like things just in general culture, especially in the US. Like you have the election, you have kind of this super like surge of meme culture on the internet. Like it was there before a little bit, but I feel like kind of 2015, 2016, we started to really see it be like memes are everywhere and that's a lifestyle for people, you know? and just kind of it just kind of coincided with a lot of huge major shifts in pop culture and the music industry. It kind of, you have a lot of artists now who are making albums that are a lot more random sounding, that are a lot more fluid in terms of genre, that are a lot more indirect in terms of messaging and lyrics, and that kind of like they kind of jump around between different styles and sounds. And you have artists who feel like they're able to kind of broaden their sort of scope of music creation. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with A Life of Pablo's success, just because it was so huge. But I do think that Fantasy is the better album. As far as just a classic, well sequenced, well put together, super intentional body of art, Fantasy is just so hard to beat. Even if you don't like Kanye, I feel like you can respect Fantasy because it's just and Jivan put it in his blurb, like he was in Hawaii to record this album, and I'm pretty sure he individually flew out every single artist to record their feature, all the sound engineers, like he did it all from the same studio, and he had everyone do it in person with him. He did not like, back out on any sort of costs or anything. Like he went all out on that album, and you can tell. The production is top notch. The features are top notch. The only feature, which I will say is the worst feature maybe in history, is Jay-Z's on Monster. That hurts a little bit. I think it's terrible.
What?
Ugh,
is that a common opinion?
It's like goblins and ghouls, and I'm like, what is that? It's
I've
like Halloween.
I've heard that opinion before, but I don't mind that feature.
I hate it. But everything else on the album is like top notch. But I can be swayed depending on what other people think. But I have a feeling that Fantasy is going to edge out Pablo, and it usually does, I think, for most people. So that's what I thought.
Yeah, that was not actually as overwhelming as I thought it was going to be. I thought you were going to be like, Pablo, because I said it. So good for you.
Thanks.
Let's see, Reilly, do you want to go?
Yeah. I guess I'll just start by saying I have never been like I think I'm gonna have a hard time with this side of the bracket because I just don't know that much about rap, and I don't know that much about Kanye or Freddy Gibbs or Kendrick Lamar or any of them, except for just like kind of like I just don't have the vocabulary to talk about them a lot of the time. I'm kind of like, yeah, I like this, or like I don't really know. One thing I did notice about like something that just I was thinking about on Twisted Fantasy was I thought it was really cool how I also didn't know that Kanye had bipolar until today, which I just was like, whoa, crazy. But
it's disputed. Like he was diagnosed and came out as saying like, "Oh, I have bipolar."
mm-hmm.
Maybe come out is the wrong word, but he publicly said like, "Oh, I have bipolar" and all of that. And then I think recently he said, "No, they misdiagnosed me."
Yeah, it's kind of debated. He still kind of claims it, but he also is kind of like, it's not true. I feel like he said that like as a public statement, just kind of as a PR type of thing. Like probably had a publicist tell him, "Hey, you've been doing a lot of really whack shit lately. You should probably come up with a reason why so that people don't hate you for it."
Well, also like the diagnoses, now we're getting into the wholly not music, but the diagnoses of like bipolar and ADHD and autism and like a bunch of other things are all super overlapping, and like just depending on like literally who you are, like if you're male, female, black, white, like you get a different diagnosis. So like, I don't know. It's really hard to, and like if he's not claiming it anymore, then like, okay, but I think he's still sort of,
Anyway, I think what I noticed on Twisted Fantasy was like I was just thinking about like my own music taste and how whitewashed it can be a lot of the time, and how it's really difficult for like anybody but a straight white man in a lot of the music that I listen to like penetrate into like rock and roll spaces, punk spaces, just like a lot of the music that I like, it's hard for anybody outside of the straight white male, I don't know, just to be able to create art in that same realm without it being like deemed lesser. So when I was listening to fantasy, I was just like, all of the different collabs that they had on there were just so awesome, because it was just like, you have just about everybody. Like, you have somebody from women, he had people of color, he had Elton John, for God's sakes, he had different ages, he had like, I think a lot of the lyricism was also like it appealed to people of different socioeconomic standings. Like, obviously it was really like focused on just racial injustice, as it should be, but it was just like, I don't know, it just made me think, it made me feel very introspective. So I didn't really have the same reaction with Life of Pablo. I was kind of just like, yay, you're having sex with Kim Kardashian, like her ass is so huge, like good for you. But like, I don't know, him as a person, I have a little bit of trouble with, just because he's so cocky and he's just like constantly talking about pussy, 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 and there was a bit like here and there I was like, misogyny. But yeah, in The Life of Pablo, I think I noticed it more, where I was like, you're kind of just being a twat. So that was how I felt. I thought Life of Pablo was my favorite, but I also wanted to ask Jake, if you could explain a little bit more why you're into auto-tune. That would be good, because it really turns me off, and I know that a lot of people like it and like see it as a really cool instrument, and I just would like to be a little educated, because I just don't like it.
So I really like auto-tune. You even said it there. I think it is just like a great way to like make a voice an instrument, because I don't know, I feel like that's all a voice really is an instrument. And if you really want to like break down, like get to like the tiniest level, it doesn't matter if it's a guitar, a sample, a keyboard, it's all just little waves that are bouncing around in your ears. And so I think a lot of the reason that people like have kind of painted it as this like just like thing that people do when they don't have any talent, that's like one of the reasons that I think that like culturally it's just looked down upon, is that it's like seen as a crutch rather than like a creative choice, which 9 times out of 10 is what it is. And there's also like a misconception about what autotune itself is, because a lot of people, the thing that is like talentless and like, oh, you're not a good singer, that's like pitch correction, which is just a separate thing from autotune, which is like a different effect. So it's not even the same thing when like people are looking at it from that angle. But I just think, I think a voice is an instrument, and I think that affecting instruments in different ways is like one of the interesting things about how like electronic music has evolved this century. And so it just kind of makes natural sense to me that the voice would also be tweaked in certain ways, as it is with things like autotune and vocoders and talk boxes. If you're like, going back in time, they're like all just like kind of different building blocks, different tools, basically. That's how I look at autotune.
No, that totally makes sense, because it's like, it sounds like a guitar pedal to me.
Yeah, that's like, it really is. It's just an effect on a little wiggly wave that sounds good in our eardrums.
Oh, cool. Well,
This is unrelated to anything, but it just makes me laugh. Have you guys watched T-Pain on The Masked Singer? Like, I don't think anyone watches The Masked Singer, but have you heard T-Pain?
I've seen some.
I think I've seen it, yeah. But, I think I've seen that.
I love T-Pain, and it just makes me laugh so much that he had to like do a whole, like he had to go on a whole show, be masked for multiple weeks to like show everyone that he can like actually sing. He was like, look, I don't need auto-tune, I choose to use it. But he did a whole Masked Singer stunt to like prove that, and I just think that is like hilarious.
And he's had to prove it multiple times too, like throughout his career. Like I didn't know he was on The Masked Singer, actually. I definitely want to watch that. That sounds really funny. But like his tiny desk is phenomenal. He is a phenomenal singer, and a lot of people just like wrote him off as like having no talent, can't sing. And
also
Kanye
phenomenal songwriter.
Yeah. And Kanye's actually at times a surprisingly decent singer as well. What do you try?
by his voice. I was like, okay, Kanye, you got kind of a nice voice. I don't know. I just
Yeah,
love
like on Jesus is King, you can kind of hear his more natural singing voice a little more, and it's not great. It's not stellar. He's not a superstar, but like, I mean, he
No
is
Chris Martin of Coldplay.
but singing wise, he's not a superstar for his singing.
Yeah, that's one more thing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm just saying his voice is actually pretty good. His natural voice.
Yeah.
And going back to the T-Pain thing, yeah, T-Pain is actually a great singer. And I think he did a talk like way back when he like first started using auto-tune, because people were like, why are you using auto-tune, T-Pain? Like, can you just not sing, bro? And he was like, no, like I choose to use it. And he was kind of criticizing a lot of other people who use it, especially newer rappers. Because he was like, yeah, they don't really use it right. They don't really use it the way I use it. I kind of use it just as like an artistic choice. And a lot of these guys are just using it and screaming into it and putting like a formant and pitch correction and just kind of using it like that, which isn't wrong. I don't think he would probably say that still, but like, it's definitely a different way of using it. I think that's kind of the common notion, is that you just have this dude who can't sing and he gets in the booth and they auto-tune the crap out of him, and then it comes out sounding like some sort of thing out of like Wall-E or something, and it's like, that's not a voice. But yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Sorry, Reilly, I derailed us so much. Were you done with your Kanye review? Okay. Okay, then yeah, Jake, why don't you go?
I feel a little differently about these albums. I don't even know where to start. I'm gonna start by kind of, you mentioned this in your blurb, Kalyan, how it was not everyone would agree with it, and I have to say, I personally don't really agree with it, but that's fine. That's totally fine. I love The Life of Pablo, but I don't see it as being such a like influential, important, I guess, work, the same way that like Fantasy, or really honestly 808s and Heartbreak is, I think, his most influential album. That's not from this decade, so it's not a part of this conversation, but I think that's really his most influential. I also think Fantasy is influential in the way that it is like this maximal mashing of like different genres and different artists from different spheres. Like, it really, I think that album is him not really giving a fuck about what kind of music he's supposed to make. And I think that honestly is a really big tone setter for this whole decade. Like in pop, in rap, in like everything, like the genre is just becoming less and less important. Things are just like fusing together or like being completely on their own. People are making just kind of whatever music they want. And like that has a lot to do with streaming and just like all these different ways of accessing and making music. But I also think it helps when someone in the mainstream like Kanye makes an album that is as off the walls, as Fantasy. And Pablo, I think, is a little, to me, I perceive it as being a little more derivative of like the trends at the time, and not quite so like boundary pushing. Like, I think working with producers like Metro Boomin and Chance the Rapper and like these like new popular trap producers and stuff on a lot of those songs, it makes a lot of sense, and I think they're really great songs, but I don't think it's quite as like boundary pushing. I don't to me at least, I don't perceive it that way. But all that being said, I actually do at this point in time prefer The Life of Pablo to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I really just love the like, I don't know, the sonic palette that it has. I feel like it's very different for Kanye. I think it's got some like trap, it's got some like house tracks, and I just want to say that I think Kanye, the only way Kanye could make a good album at this point is if he just made like a house album, because he has so many like unreleased house songs that he's like played at Sunday service, or like we're gonna be on other albums that didn't get released, or like Lift Yourself, like that like kind of housey hip hop style. He's so good at it, and he's never like really leaned into it. It's only like appears here and there on little tracks. and he's from Chicago, and Chicago is one of the like birthplaces of house. So I feel like it would be pretty sick if he made a house album. But I digress. I really like this album. I love some of the features. I also am gonna second what Reilly says. This is probably his most unfortunate album lyrically, in terms of some of the misogyny, some of the very confusing messages about like, all right, I'm gonna go back in time here, 2004 to like 2007-ish. You have working class based Kanye making sick political songs that are like defending marginalized people and working class people and against like warmongering presidents and all this stuff. Really great stuff. And then like on, I think it's St. Pablo, I meant to write the lyrics down, but he says something about like, how can you really be the owners if your boss makes a salary and all this stuff? I'm like, okay, nice. And then that same song, he's talking about being a billionaire and like his Nike checks, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's contradictory. I guess we're not sure if he has bipolar disorder, but it feels very bipolar. A lot of these songs and messaging on this album. So I guess I don't really have a great reason for why I like it more than Fantasy, because I do agree it's more cohesive. I honestly think maybe part of the reason is like these were the first two Kanye albums I ever listened to, and I listened to them both a crap ton, and just in general don't go back to these ones as much because I think I listened to them too much back in the day. But yeah, I think that's like pretty much all I have to say. I'm going with Pablo. I don't know if I have a great reason for it, but that's out.
I think I agree with what you're saying. I'll be short here. I know Zach and Lily still have to talk, but I'll be short. I think that I agree. I think that from a objective standpoint, Fantasy is a better album. It's better body of art. It's more cohesive. It's better work. But I think that the kind of underscored reason that people like Pablo more sometimes is because like it's just so raw, and it pulls something out of you, like some sort of emotion out of you that you can't really describe. Like it's very like there's very few albums that you can listen to that give you the same feeling as Life of Pablo, especially if you listen to it all the way through, which is a really hard thing to do because there's so many different feelings throughout, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so likable, because it puts you through this entire like tornado of different emotions and feelings and thoughts and sounds that all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what just happened? That was really cool.
I think a lot of that comes from his vocal performances on that album, like just screaming on like Freestyle 4 and what's the other one that's like really Feedback, like just like super unhinged. Like he really like goes a lot of places with it. I totally agree with you there. I'm gonna say a few more things because I'm remembering a few more things now. I just want to talk a little bit about the production of each, because they both kind of have their own lane, their own kind of world that he makes with the album. We got Madlib, we got Charlie Heat, we got Metro Boomin. So a really diverse palette on Life of Pablo. And then I think on Fantasy, some of the like standout things to me are like Mike Dean on like Devil in a New Dress. That guitar solo is amazing. Some of the like Bon Iver production like gives like Lost in the World like this really haunting epic feel that you don't get with like a lot of Kanye music. I don't want to keep talking about this forever. I probably could.
I think we're gonna. Zach, are you ready? Are you ready to?
Am I ever ready? I don't know about that one.
No, yeah. Don't worry about it. Just tell us your feelings.
I think that you guys have all said basically all the bigger picture things. I don't really know if I have much to add there, but I will say that I think personally that with Fantasy, it definitely feels, I think, maximalist, like in Jivan's lyric is a good way to describe it, where there's a lot going on, and I do think it's a very cohesive album, and there's definitely songs on there that I like a lot. I'm not quite sure why. I spent today trying to figure this out, and like I re-listened to these albums a lot, but with Pablo, I'm definitely more drawn to it, and I think that's I will say it's very inconsistent. I think the highs are pretty high, and there's like a few of them, but then there's some songs that are just awful. But I do have to say, I think I like, but like, I think you guys covered everything about the kind of like influence and the lyrics, especially Reilly. But this, like, purely like from a sound perspective, I really like Pablo. I don't know, like, there's nothing really in Fantasy that pulls me in production wise. Like, it's good, and I know objectively it's good, but I think I'm definitely just more drawn to the sound of Pablo and some of the songs on there. I will also say that I think Pablo is probably the only Kanye album that I had like, the first Kanye album that I like had listened to straight through, and I remember like it coming out on Tidal and all of that drama. I feel like what's something we haven't talked about yet is all the like changes that were made to it, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was listening through it. This is probably the first time in years I've actually listened through the entire album, and there were songs where I was like, I don't remember that being there. And I think that that's interesting.
Do you have Tidal, Zach?
I had it. I got the free trial when the album came out.
Go off, okay.
I was
Continue,
like, I had just
sorry.
gotten my wisdom teeth pulled, and I was like at home, and I was like, new Kanye album on some pain meds could be fun. So I listened to it first when it first came out, and then I didn't really listen to it much all the way through afterwards. Like, I just listened to the songs that I liked the best off it, like Ultralight Beam or like Wolves. And so going back through it, I was like kind of surprised, and I was like, huh, yeah, I don't know if I have too much more to add, except I just think that the sounds on Pablo really do draw me in a lot more than like Fantasy. Like, I think Fantasy is objectively good and so much better like front to back, but it's just, I don't know, maybe it's me, 2021, that sound doesn't really appeal to me much.
I think you're also just a minimalist at heart.
Yeah.
That is true. Like, Lost in the World, I think it's fantastic. I love Bon Iver, but that song, like, it seems like a song that I would like a lot, but I'm just kind of about it, you know? I'm like, I feel like I have higher expectations for what this song could have been than what it actually was. Just because, like, I think I would have expected something else, and I would have liked to hear something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I have a lot of thoughts about Kanye, which are mostly that I like deeply, deeply, deeply hate him with every fiber of my being because of like everything that he is and everything that he chooses to be. Like, I hate the Kardashian, like him and the Kardashian culture and all of that. Like, I think that is just like so
So
icky.
now.
Yeah, hopefully.
So
I mean,
now.
have they confirmed that?
I think so, right?
It's still like pretty speculative at this point. I don't think either of them have ever like actually addressed it at all.
Yeah,
but...
I think
never mind then. Never mind.
What's happening? Are they getting?
Yeah.
There are rumors that Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are going to be divorced.
Yeah, I can understand why.
Yeah. And like the running for president, not only in 2016 but also in 2020, like, it just all hurts me so deeply, and so many things about him. But I do think that something he does that like absolutely deserve credit for is making like hip hop palatable to white people. Like, and My Dark Twisted Fantasy like was that was like pop enough that like white people were like, oh my gosh, this is great, what is this? Everyone else is like, fucking hip hop, what are you talking about? And I think that album is like really, really good at what it does. And then Life of Pablo for me is like very weird to listen to, knowing that he was like in the midst of his like 2016 presidential run, which I just like makes me very angry because like, of all people, how are you the one to do this? And I also feel like medium uncomfortable about like all of the Christianity in that album. Like, I totally support his religion and his like want and ability as an artist to like talk about his religion, but it's not something that I can particularly relate to, and it makes me feel slightly uncomfortable also because of the like pushback that Christianity, particularly Catholicism, was getting like in 2015 and 2016 because of all of the news about the priests, particularly in Boston, but like all over the place. Just like a lot of things that I think he does are like sort of tone deaf, and I think Life of Pablo is like the embodiment of that, where like when I listen to that album I can only think of everything else that like was happening, and like Reilly said, the misogyny too lyrically is like hard for me to really get into. And I know I've said a lot of negative things, but I do like both of these albums like overall, but I think that Kanye like was trying to be a celebrity in the time of like the cultural monolith, and now that we're not in the cultural monolith, I don't know how much like of a place he has for like my understanding of hip hop. And like I am remiss that we have 2 Kanye albums on this list. So we have like No Chance, no Childish Gambino, no Brockhampton, like no, like so many artists and genres that aren't represented. Overall, I think that I like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy just ever so slightly better. Anyone feel free to respond to any of that. I know that was maybe some.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I
words.
didn't listen to Kanye ever, is because him as a person turns me off so deeply and in so many ways. And I also had the thought of like, you know, some of the artists that I listen to, like they have done terrible things as well. So it's kind of hard to be like, is it justifiable to separate the artist from the music, or is it not? Because I just like, I will say I did enjoy both albums a lot more than I was expecting to, because I just dislike him as a person so deeply. But if anybody has anything positive to say about it.
Yeah, you want to hand out a positive?
I do. Go you first.
Oh, thanks. No, it's quick. I was talking to a friend once about this like whole kind of thing about how Kanye is he's such a great artist. Like there's few people of this generation of musicians, I think, that can really stand up to his vision, his artistic vision and creativity and ability to put a really good project together. But I think what we agreed on was that like we could never be his friend. Like I can listen to every single Kanye project that comes out and be like, wow, this is really good. This is really great. If I saw him like at a restaurant or something, I would never go up to him and be like, yo, Kanye, let's kick it. You know what I mean? I'd kind of be like, oh, I wish it was a different celebrity I ran into, because then I'd be more excited about it, you know?
Jake, did you have something?
Yeah, last thing I want to say, and this is not me being a Kanye apologist or defender. This is purely just, I think a lot of people don't really know about this for understandable reasons, but I just think it's worth pointing out how radically different like 2004 to 2008-ish Kanye was from the Kanye you see now. Like from his music, like the fact that he made it all alone versus with a bunch of other people, to like his lyrics, to like what he stood for and just what he said and did. Literally completely different person. You know, he has to take responsibility, whether or not he has like, I'm sure he has some mental illnesses, but regardless of that, and then like the money corrupting him and all that, he still has to take responsibility for his really shitty actions. Yeah, he was pretty dope in 2004 as an artist and a person. And that unfortunately is not really the case anymore. But yeah, there's just like a lot of great things you can, him calling out George Bush on the handling of the Hurricane Katrina crisis. He was one of the first like big rappers to like condemn, and this was a lot worse of a problem in like the 2000s than it is now. Like homophobia was rampant in hip hop, like just like everywhere, and he was one of the first people to like condemn that. So like, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. He's my favorite artist, but yeah, it's unfortunate what has happened to him in this last decade or so.
I think a lot of it has to do with it still feels, if anyone like follows his story or anything, if you know anything about it, it still feels like he's trying to come to terms with the death of his mother.
Yeah.
Donda West. And it feels like he's never really gotten over that. And it's like, was that right before Fantasy? Do you know?
That
Jade?
was right before 808s, actually. But
That was right before 808s.
it's been
Right.
like a consistent theme since then, for sure.
Yeah, and since then, it just seems like every project he releases is just, it gets him further and further away from kind of what his original sort of mantras and sound was, which isn't to say that's a bad thing. I mean, everyone evolves, over their lifetime, but yeah, there definitely seems to be this sort of theme of like trauma, like emotional trauma, that he just seems like he's trying to experiment and find a way to come to grips with the fact that his mother's no longer around. Even if it's not explicit in the music as much anymore, it's just like now he's going super Christian and stuff, and it's kind of like this, and not to say that's the only reason he's doing it, because he may very well just want to be a more religious person, but it feels like he's trying to justify a lot of things in his life and figure things out, and it comes through in his sound and actions in a lot of ways that I think most of us wouldn't want to see. Go ahead, Zach. I saw you raise your hand.
I think it's not really related to what you said, but just going back to what I was mentioning in terms of the album, I definitely had a phase in my life where I was more into Kanye and enjoy listening to his music a lot, but I think I've fallen out of that in recent years, and so revisiting both these albums was definitely I don't know, it's kind of weird, a little nostalgia in there, but coming back to him, I'm definitely this is somebody I'm not that interested in hearing things from anymore. Undeniably, he's made great music, but for me personally, I'm just past the point where I care what he does in public, and I don't feel a need to listen to his music because I feel like I can get great music from other people. And so coming back to it, I was definitely thinking more along the lines of pure sonically what appeals to me right now in the current stage of my life, and I think that's why Pablo stood out to me more than Fantasy.
All right. Ooh, should we vote? Should we see if we swayed Kalyan one way or the other?
Do me last.
Okay. I can go first. I think I stand pretty strong with my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Zach.
I think I will have to go with The Life of Pablo.
Reilly.
Fantasy.
Jake.
Pablo.
No.
Pablo.
Up to you, Kalyan.
You knew this was coming.
You have the power.
I asked for this.
Are you going to vote over your own album?
I don't know.
That would be unprecedented.
True, a first here at Crave.
Crave the Podcast.
Would it also be interesting if you voted Pablo, because then it would be split by gender, which is kind of interesting. Just saying.
I mean, we are a club of misogynists, are we not?
Well.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm saying that.
Yeah,
right. I think we can all agree here that we all hate women, right? Clearly.
For that reason alone, just because of Zach's terrible joke, I'm gonna go with Fantasy.
If you love women, you love My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Yeah,
you love Nicki's verse in Monster, and that's the only reason you voted for the whole album.
Oh, I forgot to talk about that. That was on my list in my head of things to talk about.
Iconic.
Nicki Minaj verse is maybe the best verse all of hip hop ever. Actually.
Mm-hmm.
The best. Monster, automobile gangster. What a bad bitch that came from Sri Lanka.
Keep going, Jake.
Yeah, I'm in the Tonka collar of Willy Wonka. You can be the queen, but watch the queen conquer. I mixed it. No! I'm not a real Kanye fan.
Just keep going. You can edit it.
Shake it off.
Goblin, ghoul, a zombie with no conscience. That's just for you, Kalyan.
Just Jay. Okay.
Anyways, Fantasy
wow.
goes through.
Evil friends, melodrama.
I think this is happening.
Wait, can I say?
Yeah. Yes.
I'll take 2 minutes.
What just happened?
Oh,
I have no idea what she just said.
A word of that, but
I heard 2 minutes.
I thought she was asking to say something, but I think she was asking for a break.
Sound for for them that she was like baby talking or something too. Like I was really confused right there. Reilly, come back.
I think
What
she's
just happened?
doing something for 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah, sorry about the baby talking. It was just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's crazy that there's people who will defend Jesus as king as anything other than absolute trash. It's so bad.
Yo, Closed on Sunday goes hard though.
Hey, I know Zach kind of likes that album.
I do not. I'm sorry, Cal.
I actually kind of like that album sonically.
No, there's moments on it that are really good for sure.
We're moving on from Kanye.
Let's keep going. Let's keep the show moving. We're all back.
We'll have a
Thank you, Lily. You're the host we need.
We already had one Kanye episode. We're doing another.
We're cutting back in to Portugal the Man and Melodrama by Lorde. That's okay.
Do you want to say the Portugal the Man album title?
You know, I don't.
Okay.
If people want to look it up.
It's Evil Friends.
Okay, these two I think I can read. They were, when I looked at them, not scary. So Patrick Stachniak would like to give us a blurb for Portugal the Man, which is: Evil Friends is the 7th album by Portugal the Man, released in 2013, and is among Portugal's highest rated albums. Danger Mouse, who has worked with everyone from Godzilla to Gnarls Barkley, produced the album and made it one of the band's most cohesive albums. And Patrick likes it because this album is Portugal's best, but not by far. It has the sound that I had grown to love about the band, but this time they did away with some of the more avant-garde synthesizing. Each song is unique in sound, but keeps the same apathetic yet hopeful tone throughout. With some of the best lyrics in any pop or alt-rock album, I frequently find myself changing my interpretation of each song. It's music meant for the depressed or unmotivated, but it won't send you further down the rabbit hole like most punk music. P.S. I will throw hands if this doesn't at least make the semi. Whew, okay.
To throw hands with punk, I'll throw hands with him.
Okay.
He just went full genre over Portugal the Man. I'm sorry.
It's like Kalyan and Coldplay and Disco all over again.
That was
We don't
wild.
need to keep bringing that back up. So
I'm
that
keeping
happened. That happened.
And we're gonna keep bringing it up because it did happen,
I know.
and it was a highlight.
That's gonna be on the Crave.
Yo,
like,
you made Kiara
highlights reel.
quit the podcast because of that, bro.
I know. Kiara, if you're listening to this,
We miss you.
you're ghosting us. We miss you.
Oh no.
They sound like they're kidding, but I miss you deeply. And
Mm-hmm.
No, I love
trade
the
you
episode.
I was
for-
not
Oh, we
kidding.
do. We want more people. We want.
I loved the episode Kiara was on.
I
Yeah,
love
Great
her.
one.
I think she's wonderful.
I think we should just make the rest of this episode a love letter to Kiara to try to win her
This
back
is-
after Callie
Kiara,
and hurt her
come
so
back.
deeply. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Lily, rein us back in.
Okay. Melodrama comes to us from Jake's GF Annie. And Annie likes it
Hi.
because
He hasn't listened to any of these episodes.
shout out Annie. But
Shout out Annie.
Does it
Friend of the
listen?
pod.
if you listen. Annie likes it because Lorde captures emotion like no one else can. Melodrama is a beautiful and tender collection of songs about being a young person, friendship, heartbreaks, and everything else in between, all masked up as a pop record dripping it with nostalgia. I can go first. I love Lorde's Melodrama. I love Lorde. I just think she's great, and I will listen to her album at any time for no reason or for all the reasons. And I've been to her concert, so I can prove it. And Melodrama is like the album that I listened to in my summer after, I think, junior year, when I had mono and I couldn't see any of my friends because I had mono. And I would go for walks in my neighborhood because I was feeling a little bit better. I was feeling up to things a little more. And I would just put Melodrama in my ears and be like, I'm a liability. I have mono. I can make anyone sick at any moment. And it was great. It meant so much to me. So love that album. Portugal the Man. I usually love an indie boy singing to me. And this album, I think I did like. I had not heard it before, to be fair, but I did like it. In the 5 times that I listened to it, I kept tuning out. So I think I have now really engaged with every single song on the album, but it took a few more listens than I would have wanted. So I think it falls in the like sort of background music category for me, where I like can like it, and like sometimes when they're doing the more like instrumental stuff, tune back in. But for the most part, it's easy to just kind of tune out for me. So I liked Melodrama better. Zach?
Remove the bracket, Zach.
It's
okay.
No.
I just noticed it too. It's not a big deal.
Why is everyone
no.
talking so weird?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
You guys want to like do an episode where you just talk like characters from Sesame Street?
Yes.
Let's do it. I'll be Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. My favorite Sesame Street character.
That's not Sesame Street.
It's my favorite Sesame Street character.
I'll be Gonzo from the Muppets.
Okay, nice. That's a good Sesame Street character.
That's closer.
Going back.
Yeah.
That was a good transition.
Well, someone's got to pretend to be the host and keep us on track since we're getting a little unruly here.
Why are you finger gunning yourself? You're the host.
Okay, anyways, so Melodrama, I too have a soft spot in my heart for. I do love some nice female-fronted pop songs. It's not typically what I listen to, but it gets me. I'm not, Lorde, especially on Melodrama, I think is making very interesting music, very good pop that I really enjoy, and I think it has a lot of good themes and topics, which I think the little blurb we got talked about that a little bit. And then I also just have a soft spot in it because some of my good friends back in high school would love to like just blast it and drive around a little bit. Shout out Emma and Emily.
I made the foolish mistake of thinking you could possibly be talking about me.
Not you, Lily.
This is so embarrassing.
Oh.
Hey man, I'm just trying to see if they listen. I don't think they do.
Shout out to Fairview High School. For those of you listening who are from Fairview High School.
Poor Jake.
We're currently ranked 80% Fairview High School alumni here. Jake is our sole representative from a non-Fairview High school.
Jake is the only non-Fairview friend any of us have made in college.
Shout out Arvado West.
What's your mascot, Jake?
Shout out the Wildcats.
Wildcats.
Rawr.
Ooh.
I'm a Wildcat now, Jake, so
we're all Wildcats now.
Common. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Sorry, Zach, continue. I was just gonna move on past you because of how you slighted me, but I guess I'll, be diplomatic or whatever.
I really like Melodrama in a way that I don't know exactly how to describe. Like, I just think it's a very well done album, like front to back, and I think it's very cohesive as well. And all of the songs are, again, just like really well done, but not, I wouldn't say like overdone in the way that some pop can be. I think that Lauren does a really good job of keeping things interesting and fresh, even if I wouldn't like call it experimental by any means, but I just think that something about Melodrama specifically for me is very appealing and really reels me in. And I think it definitely still appeals to me. I think this side of the bracket for me is a lot about like what I listen to now versus what I listened to in the past. And I think Melodrama. Lily just put in our chat that she experimented with being from New Zealand. Isn't she Australian?
You absolute idiot. You idiot. That is so embarrassing. Jake, everything that.
This is our episode. This is our episode for the week. Just Zach saying, "Isn't Lorde from Australia?"
Chills really shooting up and down my spine. Just no.
I studied geography nonetheless. I really like Melodrama. Then Portugal the Man. I actually had never heard this album before. I was very surprised that it was their 7th album.
Yeah, crazy.
In 2013, I was like, whoa, didn't expect that. And I enjoyed it. I will say that. I don't want to be mean, but it didn't exactly grab me as much as I would have wanted it to, or as much as I was grabbed by things like, like Liability on Melodrama. There wasn't really any point on the Portugal the Man album where I felt really grabbed and sucked in. And I will.
Uncomfortable with the way Zac keeps using grabbed.
I really just wasn't grabbed by anything, and it didn't like touch me or grasp me in any manner. Fine, I'll stop saying it. Jesus Christ, is everyone a critic? Sorry, I think I will say back to this idea of old me versus modern me. I think that the Portugal the Man album is something I would have liked a lot, like mid high school, when I was definitely more into that kind of like indie rock type sound, indie pop rock sound. I think that now in the present day, there just wasn't a lot for me going through and listening to the whole album to really grab me. Although I will say that I think, and then also I feel like a lot of the sounds on that Portugal the Man album, to me, felt very 2013, if that makes sense. Like, I think, and I don't know enough about the scene or music at that point in time to say, like, what was influential or not, but I think a lot, maybe Portugal the Man was influencing other people with this album. But I think that there were some songs on there where I was like, I could definitely see similarities to other songs and albums that I have heard or like listened to more in the past.
Thank you, Zac. That was very well said, very diplomatic. I guess, Jake, you're next in reverse order.
Cool. I have, I will start with, pulling up my notes. I'm going to start with Lord. So I think it's amazing.
Wait, Jake, I'm so sorry. We're all laughing and it just looks like we're being mean to you. What happened was in the chat, minutes ago, I just said, I missed the old Zac. And then minutes later, Reilly said, straight from the go, Zac. And then a minute after that, Kalyan said, chop up the soul, Zac. And we are all just dying for no reason, but we like it. So sorry, Jake.
I love you like Zac loves Zac.
This is some weak-ass love, Jake. I hate to break it to you, but it might not be the best line.
I love you like Zac loves sad indie girls.
Yep. Bingo. There you go.
There you go. Lord, I think it's impressive how literally every song on this album and like pretty much every song on Pure Heroin is just like designed to like be this anthemic pop song that you would like sing in a teen movie on like a road trip. Like literally every song. Like that vibe, I guess, can get a little, I don't really think it's monotonous. I could see how it could be for some people because literally all of them have that feeling to them. But I think it's impressive and I like it. So for the most part, I think there's definitely enough variety to make it enjoyable. I have a few kind of like specific notes from some of the highs and lows of this album from listening to it. I've heard it before. There's on the track Sober, there's this like, I thought really corny, like synthetic brass sound that like the first thing I think of when I think of something like that is like Panic at the Disco. Not a huge fan. That's just where my mind goes when I hear like bad synthetic brass. It can be good. I'm not a synthetic brass complete hater, but a lot of times it's not great. Didn't love it on that song. But there were a lot of really interesting sonic choices that I hadn't completely paid super close attention to before, but I thought really interesting. And kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the like stuff that we're seeing a lot in pop music nowadays with like hyper pop, with like some Gex and Charlie and Sophie kind of vibes, which I just never really noticed and it's kind of surprised me. So on Homemade Dynamite, there were these like really harsh, almost like future bassy, kind of flumy bass tones and like noisy production. The Louvre has this noisy, overblown breakdown during the post-chorus, the like boom boom and make them all whatever part. I don't remember all the lyrics. And then Hard Feelings, really love the like chaotic, metallic, scratching, plucky sounds that like really just like sounded like it would be on like a hyper pop thing in like 2020 or 2021. So maybe a little bit ahead of the curve there because I mean it was already a thing at that point. Vroom Vroom EP had already come out, and like Sophie had been doing her thing for a while, but I was just like kind of surprised to notice that this time. And yeah, I think the production on this album is great. her past collaborators like Joel Little, who like I think produced pretty much all of Pure Heroin with her, came back for a few tracks. And then a lot of it is produced by Jack Antonoff, who you all may know from, the Bleachers, and he produced like some Taylor Swift stuff, Kevin Abstract.
Fun. Hello.
You're gonna leave out
boyfriend of Lena Dunham. Hello.
He's done a lot of stuff. He's quite the diverse producer, I will say. And I think that gives me a good place to lead into Portugal the Man, because I had no idea that Danger Mouse was like the executive producer of this thing. And that actually made me kind of excited. I'm not the biggest Danger Mouse fan, like the way I feel like probably a little more Jack Antonoff music overall than Danger Mouse, but he has had his fingerprints on some of my favorite songs, particularly with Gorillaz working on Demon Days, like Feel Good Inc. might not be the same, might not exist without Danger Mouse. Crazy, Gnarls Barkley, great song. And then also just in general, Danger Mouse is like really important to like just like the sample remix mashup memification landscape of like just like taking other people's things and like reworking it. Like he made the Gray album in 2004, which is a mashup of Jay-Z acapellas with Beatles instrumentals, and it was like a big case study / like important moment in like remix and mashup and, like I said, culture, which is obviously a very important thing in music right now. So that just like kind of put me in a different headspace when I was listening to this. And I will say I was actually grabbed right away by Plastic Soldiers, easily my favorite song on the album. It just does a great job of keeping you engaged the whole time. Like either instruments are coming in and out, they're evolving lines, they're being modulated. It just keeps your attention the whole time. And then the chorus at the end has these like huge spacey vocals, like disembodied voices all around you. It's a huge chorus, really, really good. But then there were tracks here and there that I liked, but literally everything after that first track was not quite as engaging to me. I was like, after that first track, I was like, have I been missing out? Is this going to be like Demon Days vibes, like really good? And for me, it wasn't really. Pretty much everything after that, like I said, was not as captivating. Creep in a T-shirt has those same Panic at the Disco freaking crappy brass lines that Sober did. And it's just like a lot of it gave me, it sounded like a product of its time for sure, but there were things about it that surprised me at how much I enjoyed, and things that I was pretty much expecting and didn't enjoy quite as much. So yeah, all that being said, I do definitely prefer melodrama, but I was actually pleasantly surprised on quite a few of the Portugal tracks. Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Did you say memification? Is that what I heard you say?
I think I said something about memes. That might have been the word. It just, like how memes are, it's like all about like just like taking a little phrase or a little image and making it your own. It's not the same way. It's not like making a painting. It's a different kind of communication and like art form, I guess. And I feel like part of that kind of stems from like remix and like mashup culture,
Mm-hmm.
Yo, this is so unrelated. Did you guys ever listen to those like? It was like YouTube Rewind before YouTube Rewind, where they like mashed up all of the like songs.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Those were kind of crazy.
Those were like really good.
Yeah.
I still.
Do you remember what they were called?
I don't.
Like there was like one dude who like did it that was like really popular.
The evolution of Dance Dance? Is that to what you are referring?
Similar vibes.
Similar, but no. Here, I'll find it. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's like they would take like the, I don't know, like the top 100 songs of the year, and then they would just like mash them together, remix them together, like it's like a really cool DJ set with like all the top songs of the year.
Maybe I don't
And
know
all
specifically you're
cool.
talking
blend
about,
Yeah.
together really well, and it's like one really long, big.
Yeah,
bop.
it's like they take it and it's like 10 minutes of just like the top like pop songs, and they like just put all together in like a really, really well done way. Do you know? Do you know what it's called?
I don't. I wish
Oh,
I did though.
my brother would know. He loves that shit. Let me text him.
You do some research. Reilly, are you next?
Well, I think so. Let's start with Portugal the Man. It reminded me of Franz Ferdinand a little bit. I really like Franz Ferdinand. This, I think it like compared enough where I was like, ooh, but then I was like, they lost me because it was just up here the whole time. It lacked a lot of the like push and pull that I kind of desire from an album. It just was like pretty much up here. There was one song that was like kind of went a little bit more slow and vulnerable towards the end. I don't remember what it was called. And then it was just like back up. And it wasn't my favorite. I wrote in my notes, I said, it almost feels like a musical about some shitty teenage boy where he's consistently riffing. Then there's a slight refrain where he realizes he's kind of shitty, and then he does nothing about it and just goes back to riffing. Like it just was kind of like, I don't know why that had that feeling, but it was just like, didn't really do it for me. And then I did say that a positive note. I said the guitar and whistling at the beginning of Smile was really cool. I liked how you could kind of hear the sound of the room in that one. Yeah, that one didn't really do it for me. Lorde, I have always loved her. I don't know, just such fond memories of being like a prepubescent teen and listening to Lorde and just being like, oh, this is indie. Where I just and I think she really does strike the balance between like kind of indie vocals and then pop like background and instrumentation. So it kind of appeals to a lot of different people, and I really like that about her. I don't know. I think that neither of these like super pulled me strongly. I kind of feel like about both of them because I like Pure Heroine a lot better than Melodrama personally, just because of like personal connection. So yeah, I would go with Melodrama over Portugal the Man, whatever the fuck, Evil Friends. Also, the fact that Patrick's comments, I did not like them, so now I'm mad. So therefore, I'm going Lorde.
Patrick shot himself in the foot with his comments. He could have had you, Reilly.
What did he say? I don't even know what he said.
He just was like, punk and indie makes you depressed. And I'm like, oh, that's my whole identity. That's my whole music. Like,
wait, where did he call? What is this? I'm confused still.
It was
in his write-up.
Like the first thing that he put down. And it was you came at all of the genres that I like best. Like, you know.
Okay, wait. Now that I have that, can you say what he said one more time?
Yeah, let me read you the quote.
Yeah.
I frequently find myself changing my interpretations of each song. It's music meant for depressed or unmotivated, but it won't send you further down the rabbit hole like most punk music.
Which is really not how I feel about punk at all. I think that's like crazy town.
That punk is depressed. Yeah, that's you know, I don't know.
How are you depressed if you're like Yeah, Zach?
Cal, you're still muted, bro. Cal,
yeah, you are
you're
absolutely
muted.
muted.
Cal,
If I keep
Wait,
I
what
think
is
he's making some good points. I'm sure he's making good points.
Cal's spitting right now. Damn. Is this a bit? Okay. Is this a bit?
That's hilarious. If ever someone tells you you're muted, just keep talking. Be like,
I didn't hear that anyone said I was muted, and I didn't get the message either. I thought you guys were disagreeing with me again, and I was like, man, come on now. And then I saw that I'm muted, so.
And we weren't disagreeing with you, so win-win.
No, I think I agree with him a little bit on the indie front. Obviously, it depends on the song and depends on the artist, but I kind of get what he's saying with the indie maybe. I think the punk is more debatable on the issue of making you more depressed, But that being said, I don't listen to a lot of indie or punk. So
He didn't say indie, he only said punk.
Yeah, that was just me protecting. Sorry.
then never mind. Then I take that take those words right out of my mouth.
I just felt like he was attacking me personally, and so I just was like, everything I like, he's come at.
Which
Zach,
is weird
did you
because
have-
I feel like we're all Oh yeah, I just want to say the moment I texted my brother about it, he texted back what it was,
Damn.
and I put it in the chat. It's Popped Anthology. The link there. He said 2014 was the best. So this is.
Just pop anthology?
I put it in the chat.
Oh my gosh!
We can get back to the actual playlist now.
Yeah. Was
For our
I
listeners, we just took a 6-minute break to watch
Popped Anthology 2014.
Highly recommend.
pretty good?
Best
Yeah.
album
Wow.
of 2010s.
I feel like that
Yeah.
kind of shit is like, that's like some TikTok sounds, but just longer, you know?
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
TikTok songs are terrible. Have you guys heard the
No,
new...
not TikTok songs, but like I feel like some TikTok things
TikTok,
are
like,
like
mashups.
right? But they're like, 10-second snippets.
Yeah. It's like Danger Mouse, pop anthologies, and then like TikTok remixes. That's like
My
the
least-
progression.
Favorite TikTok remix is Toxic by Britney Spears and Love Shack. Those songs just do not go together. They are both fabulous songs on their own. I don't know why anyone put them together. It makes me very upset.
Back to the topic. Cal, what's your opinion on the albums?
Actually, I'd rather if the host asked-
Lily, can you ask Cal what his opinion on the albums are?
I don't know. Are we ready to vote? I think we all said everything we need.
Wait. Wait.
About 2 people talked, but
No, I'm just kidding, Cal. Please tell us what you
thank
think.
you. I preferred, I know you guys are gonna hate me for this, but it doesn't matter at this point. I'm too far gone. I preferred Portugal the Man. Portugal the Man, it caught me by surprise. I'd never heard it before. I'd heard a little bit of Melodrama a few times here and there because it's just that album, you know, one of those albums. It's a very good pop album. Melodrama is a very good pop album. It's very complete. I agree with a lot of what Jake said about the production. It feels very full. It feels very effective, infectious even, as far as pop production goes. A lot of the songs are very, kind of catchy. They get in your head. You kind of feel yourself kind of getting into them. But I think I've always had an issue for some reason with Lorde, not because of who she is or because she makes bad music. It's just something that I have trouble getting into. I don't know why. I think she has a very unique sound. She has a very cool voice. She has a very cool way of delivering her lyrics. But I just can't get into Lorde very easily for some reason. And if anyone wants to help me change that, please, I need rehab. Because I know that I'm sleeping on Lorde, but
I can help you. You need to listen to Ribs like in the car with your windows down. Like that'll help.
Isolate yourself from everyone you know for like one day and then just play Melodrama. It's totally different. Get mono. Yeah, that's
True.
my best
Yeah, that'll
advice.
and go jog around listening to Melodrama. Okay.
Don't even
Jog.
brisk
Thank
walk.
you. Yeah, thank you. That's so nice.
No. But yeah, I did. I preferred Portugal the Man. I think I agree with a lot of what Reilly was saying. It feels kind of monotonous almost, and like it has the same energy all the way through. But I liked it. I thought it was a good energy, and maybe it's just because of the time I was listening to it at for the first time. But I like kind of like the opening synth sort of sound really hooked me, grabbed me, as Zach would say. And I did feel like I was tuning out at times, to be fair, but it wasn't because I didn't enjoy the album or the songs. I think it was just kind of because that energy is so consistent throughout. I think there's like a couple songs where it kind of dies down and slows down a little bit, and it's a little bit more atmospheric. But like, yeah, I just enjoyed the energy. It's definitely not my personal favorite album of all time. This one is probably the hardest one for me to choose between because I'm kind of not meh about both of them. Like I recognize them to both be very good albums, but like I'm not particularly attached to either of them. I'd probably go with Portugal the Man just for my personal taste though.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how if I had listened to Portugal the Man not as an album but as individual songs, I think I would have appreciated it a lot more and liked it better. It just got like it was hard for me to really engage with it as a full piece. But okay, should we vote? Reilly,
Lord, melodrama.
Zach,
Melodrama.
Jake,
Melodrama.
Kalyan,
Portugal the Man, Evil Friends.
melodrama.
All right. Hey, that's our first.
That's our biggest
It's
margin.
4-1. Woo!
Congratulations, guys. Surprise, surprise.
I think it's a good sign that all of ours have been like 3-2. We got some good discourse. It's a good thing.
2 matchups left to do.
Yeah, and they're the
somehow taking
easiest
longer
ones.
than the last one.
I know. We said at the beginning, we were like, this is going to be so much easier now that we know the format.
Yeah, maybe we should I feel like we're getting on tangents. I don't know who might have sent a popped anthology.
Yeah,
but we gotta
man.
cut that shenanigans out. Okay, we gotta focus in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Oh my
I
God.
said 5 hours at the beginning, and I actually apparently did mean it. Our next matchup is Puberty 2 by Mitsky and Circles by Mac Miller. So, for Puberty 2, this comes to us from Jake's sister Julia. And Julia likes it because Puberty 2 means so much to me personally. There's no album I can think of that better captures not only depression, but what a monotonous and soul-crushing daily routine feels like when you're reaching for something so elusive that you don't even know how to define it. Happiness. What makes Mitsky and this album special has always been her songwriting. The tracks on Puberty 2 are truly poetry. Every word and every note is infused with a longing so earnest and true that it often feels more like you're listening to diary entries set at a dreamy, distorted guitar more than anything else. Whew, that is so tender. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good blurb.
That's a really good blurb.
That's one of our best blurbs.
Can we get Julia to join the club?
I know.
Can we get Julia on the pod?
I actually like messaged her last night. I wanted to like collab with her on my personal essay. It's gonna because we just have so many memories about music. It's gonna be great.
Oh, yes.
Hell yeah.
So she's an honorary member now.
Yeah.
A super friend of the pod.
Super friend.
Super friend.
And then Circles comes to us from Kylie, Queen of Crave. And her blurb is that this is Mac Miller's final posthumous album released in 2020. Circles is the companion album to Mac's 2018 project Swimming. And Kylie likes it because the production and musical element of the project is difficult to critique because Mac died halfway through the production and John Byron finished it for him. With that being said, I think the lyricism and emotional circle that Mac makes from the rather tortured Swimming project is really powerful, especially given that Mac is now passed on. And a lot of the songs feel like his final ruminations about life, and it is profoundly peaceful and joyous project. Okay. Zach,
I'll take this one first.
you want to
That's
stop
okay.
sharing the bracket first?
Oh,
and
so
then,
true, Queen.
Then it's all you.
Okay.
I just want to say before Zach gets started that it's posthumous as opposed to posthumorous. But I
Oh
didn't
no. Oh no. Should I read it again?
know.
No,
I mean,
wait.
I don't know how.
Riley.
But
I said posthumous on maybe 2 episodes ago, so you have to keep that in because as soon as you said it, I was like, thank God.
We invented a new word.
As I was reading it, was like, I don't think that I know how this is pronounced. But I went for it.
No.
Confidence.
all due respect.
Okay. Anyways, back. Where was I? Mitsky. I love Mitsky with my whole absolute entire heart. And I think I was really bored over the summer working my job. And so I spent a day where I just listened to all of Mitsky's discography front to back. And I'd listened to her a lot before, but that really like cemented it for me. Like, damn, fucking Mitsky's awesome. So I think I don't have my notes on me, so this is rough and I'm very sorry. But Puberty 2 is one of my favorite albums. Again, I say this all the time. I think that Write Up was absolutely beautiful and sums up a lot of what I like about this album as well. Mitsky is such a great songwriter, and I think she does a lot of really cool, interesting things to convey her emotions and thoughts in her songs. I also feel that as I think Puberty 2 is interesting in her discography, especially because I think that I think it's, I don't know, I'm torn on this, but I think it's definitely I think it's like her best album. And I think she refines a lot of what she was doing before it on this album and kind of fleshes it out into more of a full, I guess, kind of approachable in a lot more ways, indie rock kind of sound, which I think she kind of like perfects here, honestly. And I think that a lot of the subject matter that she handles, that she touches on this album is very kind of personal and intimate but very well done, and she somehow manages to like wrap it all, or for the most part wraps it in very, I don't know if palatable is the word because that makes it sound kind of boring, but it's like easily digestible, whereas like other music that I listen to that's also emotional and intimate is more raw. I'm not saying Mitski's not raw, but I think that on Puberty 2 she does a really good job of wrapping some of these things in like more kind of standard musical things in a more refined sense, like Happy. The song is just like, that's an indie rock kind of banger, but it still touches on these same themes. And Your Best American Girl, I think, is this absolute standout track to me from this album. Touches on a lot of really important things, especially from Mitski being a Japanese American woman and a lot of her struggles with that. That I've like that song, especially to me, I think is a little bit of like a bonding point with me and my dad, and kind of, I don't know, I have a weird relationship with that song, but I think that as somebody who has family that is Japanese American, like I said, hard for me to put these things into words. But I think that Mitski does a really good job of expressing these emotions in a very approachable way, and I really like all of the sound across her album, because I will say that I did just say that she like kind of wraps it in indie rock and whatnot, and this is going on forever, and I'm really sorry. But she also still manages to like be really raw on this album, and some of these songs are still very like raw, powerful, emotional songs, which I think is another big selling point of that. So that's my Puberty 2 tirade. Apologies. Um, it's tough for me that this is up against Circles, because I'm gonna get stoned by both Kylie and Kiara at the next meeting for this if they listen to this podcast. But I have never been a huge Mac Miller fan up until after Swimming dropped and into the Circles era, and I think that's probably more just because that's the kind of singer-songwriter type music is more of what I listen to. And so when Swimming and especially Circles came out, it definitely interested me and pulled me in a way that his earlier music hadn't, because it was, I thought it was really surprising how kind of easily he transformed his sound across, like Swimming I think is kind of like a more transformative record, and then Circles coming at the end of that. I think it's really, I mean, obviously it's so sad that he passed, but I think, like Kylie said in her blurb, Circles, it's definitely hard to talk about as an album because, I mean, I don't know, just like the whole context surrounding it, but I think Circles does a really good job of kind of, as kind of a final piece to his transition in this like sound and his music, in my opinion. And I think that it's a really, really beautiful album. But that being said, it definitely hasn't like stuck with me or hit me as hard as Mitski.
Yeah, that was not a rant at all, Zach. Don't you worry. That was very beautiful. Does anyone want to go next? Yeah, right.
Kind of do, just because I think I'm in the same boat as Zach, where I'm not necessarily like a Mac Miller fan, and I will get absolutely ravaged in the group chat for saying this, but like he's just, I mean, he's never somebody that I've been like super drawn to. And then when he died, it still like, it just still, I think, impacted me in a really strange way where I wasn't quite sure why it was impacting me, because it was like, this isn't really an artist that I've ever listened to, you know, but at the same time, it's just like, oh my God, I'm so sad. And it like, Circles was the first Mac album that I've ever listened to. And I just remember listening to it and just being like so sad for so many weeks. And like still when I listen to it, it just like hits me in the gut in a really specific way. And then, you know, Mitsky also just hits me in the same way. I think this is a really hard comparison, which is also, I kind of want to hear everybody else maybe convince me one way or another, because it's like, I mean, Lily introduced me to Mitsky, and so it's just like got that kind of personal touch for me. And the first song on that album, just like, it feels almost like Alice in Wonderland, but also a description of depression that is just like so right on and accurate. And it feels just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It just, it makes me really emotional. And Mitsky just as an artist makes me feel really emotional. So I think both of them make me deeply sad. And I don't know, they both have such an emotional draw for me that it makes it really hard for me to pick one way or another.
Yeah, I echo every aspect of that. But yeah, Jake, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it is a tough one. It's a sad one too, just like all around. I totally relate to that thing you were talking about, Reilly, of I was not ever a huge Mac fan, and I still wouldn't say that I am a huge Mac fan, even though over time I've come to appreciate quite a bit of his music a lot more. But like, yeah, when the news of his like death like came out, like I had only known a few songs, but I like literally remember where I was and like what I was doing. Like I was at like, and it's not like particularly like, it's a good memory. I was at like this like art district with my mom, but I just remember like being like weirdly like affected by it. I feel like maybe it's just because like I knew a lot of people who like really cared about him. I think that's definitely part of it. Yeah, it was a weird time, very sad. I guess now I'll keep talking about Circles a little bit now, the actual project, because it was my first time hearing it. Besides a few select tracks, I think Good Days, is that
Good News?
Good News, rather. Good News and Blue World were the only tracks I had known before. I am a decent Disclosure fan, so Disclosure, guy from Disclosure producing Blue World, and I do love that song. The vocal chops on that are really cool. But in general, it's obviously a lot more, I think, lyrically focused. It was, as Kylie pointed out, posthumously like kind of produced and finished. It was like not completely done. So like a lot of that is John Byron or whatever's like hand. That being said, I do really like the production on pretty much all his album. It's really good. It's super funky. It's like not that depressing sounding, but some of those songs, man, are just like are really brutal. It gives me a like almost like Black Star vibe of like hearing some, and it's weird because like David Bowie knew he was on his way out, but like it feels on some of these songs like Mac kind of did in a weird way, even though it was like an accidental death. It's like very weird, like but like really well written and moving stuff. So yeah, I really liked it. Glad that I finally listened. It's the first Mac project I've listened to all the way through. I need to get on it and check out Divine Feminine and Swimming and all that stuff, because I like so many of his songs. I just have not gotten into him as much as I should have. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then Mitsky. Ooh, I really like this album. My sister introduced me to Mitsky, and obviously, since she suggested it, she's a huge fan, so she has been a big part of getting me to appreciate Mitsky. And it's also very kind of like soul crushing and sad and beautifully written. I think I really liked what you said, Zach, about like the like rawness, but like slightly more palatable in terms of like the actual like songs themselves. I totally agree with that. It's like she's using like this kind of indie singer songwriter platform as like a vessel for her like songwriting, which is very different from a lot of stuff in that field. It's a lot I think heavier and interesting in a lot of ways, and really well written and poetic, as my sister said. I think she does have a very poetic tone of like writing style. And then also production wise, there are a few things that I thought were really interesting about this album. In general, it kind of has this like simple, kind of stripped back, lo-fi feeling at parts, like especially with like the vocals, the vocal processing on a lot of these songs, where it sounds like she's like being like projected through like a loudspeaker at like a military boot camp or something like that. Like that's just kind of what it sounds like. It's like super tinny and like weird vocal production, but it's kind of good at conveying the emotion and like capturing the intensity and rawness of it. And then last thing I'll say about this, specifically about the song Crack Baby, I had never really like listened to Mitsky with like a super production like and this time I didn't either. But like I never really listened to it with like production being on like the front of my mind when I'm like thinking about it, because I don't think that is for her either. I think the songwriting definitely comes first. But Crack Baby, I was like kind of surprised. I've heard it a bunch before, but I was listening with like my good headphones, and it's like this almost like hypnotizing song. It's really interesting. And she does this thing where she like, the singing almost feels like kind of aimless and like off the grid and like really wacky. And it kind of like reminds me of like the end of Nobody when she does a similar thing. And I used to kind of hate that song because of that part. Like it literally like made me feel nauseous and like sick just because of how like hypnotizing and weird and wonky it was. It's grown on me a lot, and I really like it here a lot. It's a great album. I also, this is one of the closest ones for me as well. So I'll let everyone else talk and then see how I feel at the end.
I just love listening to what everyone has to say about every album. It's very tender and very nice. Kelly and I won't make you go last again, so why don't you go?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think pretty obviously from what I just dropped in our chat, I feel differently than
He's slandering us in the Slack.
I had to. This is a hard choice. This is a very hard choice. I think that this is a hard comparison, but mostly because these are actually kind of similar in a lot of ways. Like they're both pretty like solid gut punches emotionally, like as far as albums go. Like they kind of hurt to listen to in a lot of ways. That being said, I personally am more saddened when I listen to Circles, but that may just be because of my more personal connection with Mac, listening to him a lot more. Mitsky, I'd never heard before. I really enjoyed it as an album. It's not something I would listen to typically. I probably won't really listen to it more than a couple more times. It was a very well put together package of emotions. I think that kind of encapsulates what everyone else has said so far. It's very well written. It's very intentional. It really makes you feel a lot of the feelings that are being written about in the lyrics. And I agree with what Jake was saying from a production standpoint. Like the production on Puberty 2 isn't as captivating, I guess you could say, or interesting as it is on Circles. Circles is definitely, it sounds that you can listen to Circles, and if you don't listen to lyrics, they're bops. A lot of the songs are bops, especially like Blue World. Even Good News, it's kind of like a laid back, just kind of like, you can kind of bop your head to it. It's kind of nice. Once you listen to the lyrics, though, it's a little different. It's actually really sad. But I do feel like as far as sonically, Circles is more interesting. I mean, I will say Circles, the first couple times I listened to it when it first came out, made me cry. Like I was very distraught when I listened to Circles. Like, and it's still like, it's hard for me to listen to like Good News or Circles. Even Blue World's a little bit more up tempo. It's not as sad as some of the other ones, but it's hard for me to, especially Good News is the one that is super hard for me to like listen to, and like still be in a really good mood. It's such a powerful song, and I think when you look at Mac's discography, you know, he had so many albums where he kind of perfected his sound, and he's such a musical person. I don't know if you guys have seen any like YouTube videos or anything of him like making music in the studio or just like screwing around on the guitar or whatever. Like he can do anything he wants with any instrument in the world. He's so talented, and I think that if there are critiques of his earlier music, it's that it sounds like he's just having fun with his music. He didn't have a lot to necessarily say in the way that he does on albums like Swimming and Circles. Like there, it really feels like he has a very personal attachment to the music he's making, and he's really trying to convey something emotionally, and it feels much more direct. When I listen to Swimming and Circles, I feel like Mac Miller is sitting next to me, telling me, you know, how he feels, versus some of his older albums. And for that reason, I would say that they're two of his better albums. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have as much to say on Puberty 2 because I don't have as much personal attachment to it. I did think it was very good. Like a lot of other albums on this that people recommended, it surprised me very pleasantly, but it's just not my speed. And Circles to me really, really punched me in the gut. So yeah.
That's a good spiel. This is definitely a super hard comparison because they are two such sad albums, but they're sad for like different reasons almost, and like, but also the same reason, and it's just very hard to grapple with. I am gonna say that I think that I like Circles better overall, which is shocking to me and everyone. Like I think Mac's death was so hard for people our age because it was like kind of the first person who was our peer who was so famous and like did die so young, which is like a classic story of artists and musicians especially. But it was like that is still something that it's like you can think about Amy Winehouse and you're kind of like, oh, that is really sad that she died so young, but you don't feel it quite as much because you weren't like listening to her thinking she was going to be able to have a whole career after that. So that is what Circles does for me, is like this being his final album and like still being things that he really wanted to say, I think is like very powerful, and it is an incredibly sad album to listen to like in its context and then also by itself. And like Kalyan said, you can kind of like, you know, like you can put it on and just dance to it or just have it playing and not really think about it, but if you listen then you, or like tune in a little more, then you're like, oh yeah, no, that's a super sad message, or like, yeah, I totally relate to that and that makes me feel things. So I really like Circles, and I am maybe bigger Mac fan than I am a Mitsky fan. I think that's probably safe to say. I do really like Mitsky too, and I like Puberty too. And I'm a little surprised to hear you guys say that you feel like it's more palatable than some of the other sad indie music we listen to, because to me, I feel like it's less palatable, or like its palatability makes it hit harder for me or something. Like I feel surprised when I listen to this album. I'm like, you know, oh, what? This sounds like such a nice song, but you're saying such a sad description of depression, or like, you know, whatever she's talking about. It just knowing that Mitsky's going to be able to continue to make music and like not having quite that context for the album, like them sort of hitting on the same topics, I think Max grabs me just like ever so slightly more than Mitsky's does. Are we ready to vote? Anyone have any last thoughts? No? Okay. Zach.
Puberty 2.
Reilly.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna go Puberty too, but I think I'm gonna go Circles.
That's shocking. This is an over. Ooh, okay, Jake.
Okay, I feel a lot better about this now because I didn't know what I was gonna say, and I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I was leaning towards Puberty too, but I also kind of felt like Circles should go on. But I think at this point it has the votes it needs, so I'm gonna go with Puberty too.
This is wild.
This is wild. What a flip of everything. I'm so confused.
This is a crazy round.
Cal?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Circles.
I will also say Circles. Whew, what an upset, but also evened out. So
It's a crazy round.
Can I say something really quick?
yeah, Zach.
Move on. To me, I definitely have such a personal like bias and feeling toward PB2 that it's hard for me to overcome that, even for like an album like Circles, as sad as it is. We'll say that even with that, like that it had to be filled in, I think it's still it's still impressively like cohesive, and there's not, to me at least, it doesn't really sound that repetitive, which is something I might expect if they're working with limited kind of work from Mac before he passed.
Yeah,
That definitely like impressed me when I listened through it. I was like, damn, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like, obviously I don't know, but it doesn't feel like they strayed too far from what the intent was, given the little, like, given what was recorded at that point.
Yeah, it sounds like a Mac Miller album, and I don't know if you guys saw the visuals for it, but I think they did a really good job. Like all the YouTube kind of videos, I think they did a really good job. Like it's all kind of connected. It's a cohesive project all the way through, and I think they really did a good job of paying homage to his career and kind of his sound and kind of where it was going towards the end of his career.
Last one.
On to our last one. This is also going to be tough, I think. So for this round, we have To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar and Pinata by Freddy Gibbs and Madlib. And I know out the gate that we do not have like a bio for Pinata, but I know that you just wrote a little piece about Madlib, Jake. So do you maybe want to think about something you can say for that one while I read the other one? Okay, thank you. Okay, so To Pimp a Butterfly comes to us from Cal's brother. His blurb is, Kendrick Lamar's third studio album covers the struggles of his own life using vivid vocabulary and funky samples to create what is often referred to as the greatest album of all time. And Cal's brother, what's your brother's name?
Alexi
likes it because from start to finish, this album is packed with experiences of Kendrick's life, which are painted in a way that makes everyone listening able to relate to the emotions pouring out of each song. This takes the role of the modern rapper constantly trying to hide behind fame and money and makes it accessible form of entertainment which anyone can relate to. The poem, which is read in the song Mortal Man, perfectly sums up the album and can be found throughout it. The album, almost being named To Pimp a Caterpillar, shows the influence of Tupac on Kendrick's life and rap career, and this is further shown with the interview between the two at the end. Kendrick never receives an answer to how Tupac liked the poem, and this repeats why the album is named To Pimp a Butterfly rather than To Pimp a Caterpillar. All in all, this is a very heavy album with a lot of good content, which tells the story of Kendrick Lamar's upbringing, both in and outside the rap game.
All right, I can say a few things about Gangsta Gibbs and Quasimodo. This is a mystery. Who added this? I mean, the fact that there's not a blurb is one thing, but I wish I just know who added this.
Wasn't it you, Jake?
No, I did. I had Igor.
Oh, that's right. Whoa, who added?
Yeah, we don't know. A good pick. I might have gone with Bandana myself, which is another Freddy Gibbs Madlib album, but Pinata is excellent as well. And so, yeah, I don't have anything prepared or anything, but I can say a little bit, I guess, about probably more than Madlib than Freddy Gibbs, but Madlib is an excellent producer. He has worked with the likes of Freddy. He's worked with the likes of MF Doom, multiple collaborations with Jay Dilla, Kanye, Kendrick. He's done it all, and he has a really distinct style of like production. It's very sample heavy, very little in terms of like additional like instrumentation that he adds. It's pretty much all samples, And the way he samples is very interesting. It like is very non-destructive, whereas a lot of sampling, and it's not that he doesn't edit the sounds at all, but a lot of sampling is about like, hey, how can I make this like sound like something completely different and like my own? Whereas he's kind of like, he's a big music fan. He's like a vinyl digger. He pays a lot of respect to what he samples. And I mean that in terms of like crediting, payment, which are things that sometimes get a little hairy with samplers and producers. But he's very adamant about respecting kind of like where the music comes from, and he like also is very, the way that he like puts the samples in the song is very pure. He doesn't really destroy them or mix them up too much. Like he chops them and he arranges them in very unique ways that are very transformative, but the sound itself is pretty similar to what is like on the original vinyl that he's sampling. And then Freddy Gibbs is a rapper who has just been like, I think one of the most like consistently great rappers of this decade. He works a lot with like a producer on an album, which I think is like one of those signs of like a rapper who really cares about their craft and doesn't just want to like kind of take random beats from here and there. But like, so like he has this album with Madlib and then Bandana with Madlib. He has just last year he dropped Alfredo with The Alchemist, and then he has his Freddy EP, which is mostly Kenny beats. And he's really just kind of known for this like really gritty Scarface cocaine slinging, because he was a former drug dealer, so he comes from that place. He speaks his experiences, and he's got a really unique voice. He's got really harsh, like nasty flows. He's a great rapper. I love my man Freddy.
That was so cohesive. Thank you, Jake. Go ahead, Reilly.
I know that sampling is like a crazy risky thing to do, just in terms of like licensing, and it's incredibly expensive to be sampling. So I don't even know if I'm asking a question. It's just like,
yeah, I love sampling, but it's got a lot of weird gray zones, and like I think it's 100% like a valid form of art. I think it's 100% transformative. I mean, if it's done properly, but also, yeah, there are a lot of weird gray areas with it, like legally, but I think more interestingly, just like as a creative person, like people have different perspectives on it. Like I could care honestly less about what the law says about it, but I do think there's a lot of really interesting debates to be had about the like creative merit of it.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a challenge. It's like a puzzle almost. Like you got to find the right track to sample, and you got to find the right part of the track to cut up, chop up, and you got to loop it into your track. You got to find ways to play with it, pitch it up, pitch it down, throw a filter on it, cut out the lows, cut out the highs. You can get rid of the drums underneath. Like it's definitely hard. It's really fun. It's like a logic puzzle almost.
Yeah, I think my problem with it is maybe not a problem, but it's just like, I don't know, when I hear like, I don't know, there's certain songs that I hear sampled in there, just like old like classics like T-Rex, Paul McCartney, like whatever it may be, like people using them as samples, and I'm like immediately turned on of like, oh, I know the song, I like this song, and then it changes and I'm like, wait, that's not the song I thought it was. So I just like, I don't know, I think it's also an ethical dilemma, as you both mentioned, of like kind of building a song around somebody else's work, where like, I mean, a lot of these artists that are sampling are really good artists alone, like standalone. They are great artists. It's just like, I don't know. Personally, it doesn't really resonate with me when people sample.
I think a lot of people ask the same questions as about like remixing. Maybe they don't ask the same questions, but it's kind of in a similar realm, I think. I think it's easy to kind of tie the two together. Like sampling is obviously different than remixing, but like people don't necessarily have issues when Flume remixes a pop song that comes out. People are excited about it, right? I think you can kind of say the same thing about a lot of, if you're like a hip hop head, like you really like hip hop, or you're really into classic music, but you also like hip hop, like it's really cool a lot of the time to see like an old, like if you get like an Ella Fitzgerald sample on like a Jay-Z
Totally.
song, like that is crazy, right? If you're really into that. But yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from, Reilly. I think that there's I don't know if you guys have heard the Lil Uzi Vert song, That Way. It just remixes Beastie Boys That Way. I believe Beastie Boys? Is it Beastie
Oh,
Boys?
Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys. Yeah,
Boys.
I was like,
I was like, why do the Beastie Boys have to do with
I
this?
know, it sounded fun. I was like, it's not Beastie Boys. Yeah, but like, and it's a pretty one-to-one sample, I'd say, as far as sampling goes. But
It's an interpolation, I feel like.
yeah,
right?
it's more of an interpolation.
Yeah.
Then you get into kind of that. I agree. Anyway,
I feel like something sampling does do is like potentially bring songs that are like really, really great classics back into like someone samples
into the
a song
mainstream. Mhm.
and then like people are like, oh, what was that? Like I really liked that. I want to go listen to that.
Mhm.
So it like I think like Ella Fitzgerald's a great example, or like Lee Moses, or someone that's like their discography isn't even on Spotify or something, and it's interesting to see like what that artist like really, really likes. I don't think Ella Fitzgerald's an example of that, but Lee Moses was for a while.
Mhm.
Just seeing first of all what they like, and then how those songs can like be, reworked or brought back into something that is like new somehow in 2021 or whatever. For people who don't already know them,
No, it's totally fair. I mean, I recognize that most of what I listen to is like older than me or my parents half the time. So I'm definitely not, I know so little about hip hop, rap, like that whole realm. Like I just want to learn more than anything. I don't mean to like offend or say anything against it. I'm just like, why does it speak to you? Because I don't know how I feel about it.
You could never offend in this podcast room.
Yeah, you run this. You could piss them
Yeah.
off.
That's sweet, but run's a strong word.
Does anyone want to start with our album? Yes.
I will.
Zach, go.
Take initiative.
Take initiative.
Woo!
First time in my life. So coming into this, it's weird. I think, honestly, when we were putting this together, I was kind of hoping that To Pimp a Butterfly would not be in this bracket, because I feel like it is
It's hard to vote against it.
It's hard to vote against it, and I think it's hard to talk about it in any kind of meaningfully new way, because it is just such a huge influential album, and it's very important. And I think that at this point in 2021, I think most people can recognize that, or at least on some level understand the like influence that To Pimp a Butterfly has had, and how big, especially at the time when it came out, it was. So that being said, I also have always struggled listening through to To Pimp a Butterfly from front to back. I don't know why. It's just something I was never really able to do until today. So I'll start talking about Pinata first, I guess then. Pinata, I actually have listened to it more times than To Pimp a Butterfly. And it's weird that it's kind of out here with no claim to it. I think it's a really solid album. And I really like Freddy Gibbs and his style of kind of rapping. And I think that throughout all of his projects, he's very consistent with, I think something that is impressive to me is how he works with all these kind of different producers and their different styles, but he's still able to incorporate them into his sound and kind of weave his lyricism through that and really find pockets in their beats that still kind of makes his whole discography really cohesive. And so I think he does that really well on this album. And I will say, I think the features on this album are really good as well. Like, he pulls in a lot of people that I think add to his sound a lot. But then it's going up against To Pimp a Butterfly, and I think it's very hard to, in many cases, vote against To Pimp a Butterfly. Like, I would do it if it was an album that I personally was really attached to. But also, I listened to it all the way through for the first time today. Don't crucify me. And I think I was absolutely blown away by it. Like, I think it is as important now as it was back in 2015 when it dropped. Kendrick Lamar is obviously one of the greatest like rappers of all time. Like he just has an incredible ability to kind of weave these tales and tell these stories across his albums. And for me personally, I really like his style of rap. And I think on To Pimp a Butterfly, I really enjoy the kind of, I think through most of the songs, there's kind of like a jazz ensemble type of backing to them. And I really, really like that style. And I think that To Pimp a Butterfly, aside from that kind of the cultural context, I think we probably all know that the whole kind of story there and all of that, especially with the Grammys and whatever happened years and years ago. But I think like musically, the album just really, especially today, kind of just really connected with me and spoke to me in ways that it hadn't before. And so I think aside from all of obviously the very important kind of context with it, I think the kind of storytelling across the album and the different production kind of jazz inspired aspects of it, I really, really enjoyed.
I don't know anything about what happened at the Grammys or any of the anything.
Yes.
Can you dive into that for me a little bit?
Yes, maybe Cal or Jake would they would probably know more about it. But basically, so with the Grammys, he was nominated, I believe, he was nominated for quite a few Grammys, 2016 Grammy Awards. And one of them was Best New Album, which he lost to Taylor Swift. Is that right?
Taylor Swift was
Which
nominated
is
for Best New Album in 2016.
Which is so
So
funny.
At first, I was confused because I thought you were talking about when Macklemore beat Good Kid, Mad City in 2014, which is also insane.
Also a
Yeah.
travesty, yeah.
That's
I
crazy.
didn't even realize that happened though.
I'm pretty here. Wait, I'll fact check myself here.
I think it's Taylor Swift. I think you're right.
I also think that you're right. Isn't that the
Taylor Swift beat To Pimp a Butterfly.
which
Okay.
is such shite that is a terrible album.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Lily, okay, I just wanted to ask Lily if she hates Kanye or Taylor Swift more because those are right here for me. Like I just hate them both so much.
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll think on that.
Get back to me.
the best part is they hate each other. So
They sure do, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like when I listen to Kanye ripping on Taylor West, when
West?
Kanye
got
West
married.
rips on Taylor Swift, I'm just like, you know what?
in an alternate universe right now, there's a Kanye Swift and a Taylor West, and they love each other.
No, they both
Having
suck.
babies on albums and
Yucky.
Ugh.
Reilly, back to your question. Also just like the album, I think that at that point 2015 was when a lot of stuff was happening with like Black Lives Matter after I think it was Eric Garner and
and then
Biden.
of course a white girl
Yeah,
comes
Trayvon
in,
Martin.
beats him out for best.
yeah, so there was a lot of stuff
Talk
because
that.
on To Pimp a Butterfly he deals a lot with kind of these racial issues, and I think he speaks a lot of very important things on the album about that and kind of rap culture. There's a lot of like articles and essays and whatnot out there that you can read that will probably explain it better than I am at this moment, but that's kind of the gist of it. Where at this point in time, this album, because obviously like objectively it's a really good like musical album, but very important kind of culturally dealing on these different topics that were definitely coming up at that point in time, and then it lost to Taylor Swift in the Grammys. And so a lot of controversy around that. I don't know if Jake or Cal want to add anything, or Lily even.
I want to add something that's it's related but not completely the same. This is again in slight defense of Kanye, just because I do think he shouldn't have
Jake
done
playing his role. Yes.
I don't think he should have interrupted Taylor at the Grammys, but
It was the VMAs, wasn't it?
sorry, the VMAs.
Yeah.
He is first of all 100% correct that Single Ladies is 100% more like relevant and culturally important than whatever. I don't even know what Taylor Swift song it was. So one, he was right about that, and he did not express this clearly. And this happens a lot with Kanye, where he like almost makes a decent point, but he is so bad at expressing himself that also like the race factor of like Beyonce getting snubbed for that award was part of the reason why he was so upset. It's just not conveyed very well in that moment. That's all I have to say.
No, all I was gonna say, to defend my earlier point, I hate Taylor Swift 8 times more than I hate Kanye. I think Taylor Swift sucks. I just hate her, and I don't think he. I don't know.
Taylor Swift is no longer a friend of the pod.
I don't think she was. I think we already outcast her.
Did we already rip on her earlier?
It was probably me. I hate her. I'm sorry. It's like
there were
her and
champagne
Anne
problems
Hathaway.
jokes in like
Oh,
the first
right.
Reilly, you can't compare her to Anne Hathaway because you have no reason to hate Anne Hathaway.
I don't care. I hate them both. I think
yeah, to the question, I think that I also...
Reilly is up and about. She's got to get some...
I thought she was about to climb into the bathtub.
I'm sorry, my cat is bleeding for some reason, and I was just like, "Oh, Bubba, what's happening?" So now I'm dabbing blood off of my cat's face.
Nice.
I don't know.
It is. I think maybe closer for me than it is for Reilly, though. I don't know that it's 8 times more, but
I don't know why I hate her so much. I just think she's such a dumb bitch. I'm sorry. I'm so
that's
sorry.
reasonable. No, I don't. Nah.
Well, in defense of Taylor Swift, I don't hate her. I just have no real opinion of her.
Yeah, I think the like true hatred of her comes from a very misogynistic place, but then it's like she does a lot of like racist and homophobic things that you're like, but isn't that a good enough reason? Like it's just both these people are all over the map on like reasons to hate them and not. So it's just tricky.
You could be totally right. I hope I'm not coming from a misogynistic place, but I just hate how
I mean,
panders to like she's
the
like,
neckbeards
let's
of Reddit.
not be homophobic. Like we love marriage equality. We love this, we love that, but she only does it when it's convenient. And I'm just like, oh man, fuck you. You do this to pander to an audience. Like, oh, I just hate it. I hate it so much.
Okay, I can go. I really like To Pimp a Butterfly, and I think that album is like really front to back incredible on its own and tells really great stories and is a lot of like very topical for the like 2015 Black Lives Matter time. And he like, you know, in his sampling of Tupac and just like everything is so cool and so well done. And it is not really an album that you can just like put on and be like, oh, it's in the background. It's like it just takes your attention because it's so musically interesting to me anyway. I think that a lot like that started a lot of the conversation about like why are awards shows so racist that we're still having in like every way, where it's like some Netflix like TV show is like, we're important, and awards shows are like, oh, whoops, you're important. And it just speaks to how like all awards, like Nobel Prize included, like is bullshit and is just like marketing yourself and like being palatable and being white and male and heterosexual. So like us valuing these awards is like pretty dumb in my opinion. But then that being said, like Kendrick then did get like a Pulitzer Prize for Love, which was like incredible and like the first rap album to ever get that. But it's like there are so many well-written and beautiful rap albums that don't get any attention because they don't fit the thing. So it's like Kendrick brought so much attention to this that they were like, oh, okay, sorry we did that to you, here you go. But it's like that doesn't really solve the problem. But anyway, I think like To Pimp a Butterfly is, like your brother said, one of the best albums of all time. I really like it a lot. I listened to it a good amount, and like listening to it front to back in 2021 after everything that happened in 2020 with Black Lives Matter, I was like, wow, we are literally in the exact same place, if not a worse place than we were then, because we didn't have this like white nationalist undertone to everything we were talking about. Like we didn't know that was there quite as much. So yeah, it was very interesting to listen to it recently, and yeah, really liked it. And then Pinata also is a great album, and I really like Freddy Gibbs for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about too. Like I think he is definitely also one of the best rappers, and like the rappers that I enjoy the most in his, it was either Jake or Zach. It was someone in their description of the album talking about how he can like work with all these people, but like make his sound be the predominant sound. I think that's really cool. But yeah, it's just really hard because these are two such great rap albums when like Butterfly was against like 1987 or whatever that album is called, 1989. That's like not even comparable. It's so stupid that we would have to be choosing between these two, because this is obviously a much better mashup than any of the awards shows we're doing. But I think I will go with To Pimp a Butterfly. Cal, do you want to go next?
I mean, I think the answer is pretty obvious, and you know, not to slight the sort of powerful sound that comes through on Pinata, but I think To Pimp a Butterfly is just more of a significant album, and I think it has more of a, I think Zac was saying palatable, was using palatable as a term earlier. It's more palatable to kind of the average person. It grabs you, yes, in a way that you know, I think I think you have to really be into hip hop, and not even just rap, but hip hop, to really appreciate Pinata for what it is. Um, and I love Pinata. I love Freddie Gibbs. I think Freddie Gibbs is definitely one of the better rappers, classic rappers of our this generation. And I think that it's especially interesting that he's more of an underground rapper in a lot of ways. He's not a 2 Chainz, a Kendrick even. He's not a any of these big guys who are constantly in the media. They're pushing out an album every year, and it's just a super pop sounding, trap sounding, super upbeat, up tempo, money, drugs, bitches, alcohol sound. He's very consistent. I usually see him, and he did an album with Currency, who's one of my favorite artists too. They're kind of in the same bracket of rapper. They're underground. They're not super popular. They don't push and advertise their projects or their sound or their brand constantly all the time. They're not on social media doing crazy things and posting their newest car and posting their newest watch and saying, buy my merch, buy my blah, blah, blah. And if they are, it's to their niche audience of their core fans who will buy that, and they know that. And they stay true to their sound. They're the type of artists that haven't sold out, but have still managed to make their own lane and be very successful in that, and still be able to kind of make the music that they want to make for the sake of making that music. Freddie Gibbs is, he has a super unique voice. It's this very, it's a little bit reminiscent of some of the older Tyler the Creator sound a little bit. In that he has this very deep, raw voice that, he's just kind of always, it's very braggadocious. It's very, like Jake was saying earlier, he comes from, he used to be a drug dealer. So he has this, very like machismo, like macho style that, it's rap, it's real rap. It's authentic to the kind of this classic New York sound that a lot of people credit, with kind of the birth of hip hop and rap music. But To Pimp a Butterfly is just so good. It's more than a hip hop album. It's more than a rap album. It's more than a pop album even. It's, it really is kind of its own thing. And like Zac said, kind of these jazz interpolations throughout the whole album. And, you've got saxophones, you've got drum breaks, you've got all these different textures and layers and sounds that you hear in like a jazz ensemble, but with hip hop lyrics and beats in a very well polished, well produced package that it's banger after banger after banger. And it's not like every single song is a radio record. It's got interludes on there. The Mortal Man, the last song, is basically just him reading a poem. It's still like, it just pervades popular culture. Even to today, like people will talk about how great To Pimp a Butterfly is, and it's coincides with kind of the real takeoff of the Black Lives Matter movement. And you would hear all right at, Black Lives Matter rallies all the time. I'm pretty sure they had like promotional videos that they used that song in, because it's such an anthemic album that really speaks to these authentic experiences that typically kind of get overlooked in music, even by artists who would kind of see themselves in the same bracket as Kendrick. Those artists don't really talk about a lot of the things he does on this album, even on Good Kid, Mad City, which I personally believe is a better album. I think it's more important in terms of his discography personally, but I do concede that To Move Butterfly is culturally more important. Yeah, he just talks about these things that you just don't hear other rappers talking about. And because you don't hear other rappers talking about it, you don't hear other pop artists or any real artists talking about it, because it's such a unique experience to kind of this growing up around gang culture in, California and Compton. And, being able to bring that out in an album that's so positive sounding, it's hopeful. It's an album that you listen to, and no matter how well you can relate to the content, you come out of it feeling hopeful. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking about it.
Reilly, you want to go?
Yeah. Again, as I have stated on many of these albums, this is not necessarily my wheelhouse, and I feel kind of guilty for the fact that I've not really listened to either of these albums before. To Pimp a Butterfly, I've listened to like maybe a few times here and there, but like I just have never sat down and listened to it on my own as a whole album. I've heard from other people like, you should be listening to this, you should be listening to this. And I feel like so stupid that I didn't have any idea about any of the cultural implications of it. It's just like, oh my God, you dumb idiot. So personally, as somebody who doesn't listen to pretty much any hip hop on a regular basis, any rap, anything like that, I definitely found To Pimp a Butterfly, like everybody said, more palatable. I think the lyricism in both albums is crazy. It is like just unbelievable. They were both incredibly moving and just made me feel, despite the fact that they're both older albums, they are both incredibly pertinent to 2020 and everything going on with Black Lives Matter, and just like the fact that we are still here and that we're still talking about this and that it's still like literally no different than it was in 2014, 2015 is shocking and appalling. I think for me, I find a lot of connection with jazz just because of my own like personal feelings towards it. Like it's always been a music genre that I love and always been a music genre that I just like, there's so many interesting cultural implications of like, 60s jazz and avant-garde, and I just love that genre. That's a whole other conversation. So personally, Kendrick's album really, to speak it again, grabbed me in the way that it's like, oh my God, these are really cool jazz samples. Like all of the, just everything happening in that album was just like, blew my mind. And I was so appalled with myself that I had never listened to it before all the way through because it was so fucking good. It was so amazing, just like fully musically. I was just like totally emotionally affected by it, musically affected by it. Like it just hit me in every single facet. And as somebody who doesn't listen to rap on a regular basis, it just was like blew me away. And I was just like, what the fuck have I been doing? Like I've been listening to the wrong genres for my entire adult life. And then, the Freddy Gibbs album, I definitely enjoyed a lot. I found it, to go back to Zac's vocabulary from the episode before this one, a bit grating, just in the sense that I didn't find a lot of diversity in sound on that one. It definitely seemed to be maybe not necessarily a bad thing, but it just was pretty much, it didn't seem to, for me, up and down a level. It seemed to kind of stay in the same vein the whole time. And I found myself tuning out of it, which I think I would love to give it another listen. I've listened to it a few times now, but anyways, I think my vote goes towards To Pimp a Butterfly, but I think that both of the albums made me feel like a dumb idiot because I don't ever listen to hip hop or rap. So
Reilly, I feel like a dumb idiot, and I do listen to hip hop and rap. So it won't solve your problems. I know it seems like it will solve it. No, you'll always be a dumb idiot.
We know nothing. It's crazy.
We know nothing. It's crazy.
So fucking dumb.
Crazy world out there. All right, Jake, do you want to round us out for the episode?
Am I the last one?
I think you're the last one.
Woo! All right. I have a lot to say, and
Yep.
I'm going to start by trying to cover everything that I noticed that I wanted to comment on that y'all said. So first of all, matter of fact here, Kalyan, he's actually not from New York. He's from Indiana.
No. I said his sound is very reminiscent of the original.
Okay. Sorry.
No.
I was also gonna comment on that, but I didn't want to have a posthumous moment. I didn't want to make Kalyan look like an idiot for literally no reason.
But also, I was just gonna say it doesn't really matter that much. I was gonna it's the only reason I was gonna point it out is because like regional sounds are such a thing in hip hop. But like what you say, I get what you're saying. That's fair.
It's that more traditional boom bap sample.
Yeah.
Grady lyrics. Yeah.
I'm gonna start with Pinata. I really love, as is probably evident, Madlib, and I really love Freddy Gibbs. I love Madlib a little more, but Freddy Gibbs is sick too. I don't know, just these beats feel so like cool and classy, and like it's just like you should be like sitting on a yacht, like drinking some scotch or something, as there's like piles of cocaine behind you. That's just the vibe you get listening to this album. And I think that pairs with Freddy's like commanding, luxurious flows, like peanut butter and jelly. It's just a match made in heaven. So it makes sense that they have made 2 full-length records together, and possibly have one coming out soon. They've been teasing it. They've been teasing it. Freddie posted in. Okay, this is the other thing. What did you say about Freddy Gibbs's social media, Kalyan? I can't remember what you said.
I said they don't really like. Yeah, he's very braggadocious in his lyrics and stuff, right? But as far as social media goes, he's not constantly plugging himself.
Yeah. He's constantly posting insane shit. He's constantly posting insane clips. He got banned from Instagram because he posts the craziest, like, I don't know why Freddy Gibbs has taken it upon himself to post like the craziest clips of like weird sexual things and like people fighting, and it's so bizarre.
Right? Didn't he get in a fight with someone really famous not too long ago? Like if he posts something...
Academics.
TJ Academics.
Yeah.
Academics. Yeah, I do remember that now.
Such a clunk. He used to be somewhat respectable.
Yeah, Freddy took him to town though. That was funny. But I'm mostly talking about like the stuff he would post on like his Instagram stories. If you've ever seen that, I think he got banned. So now to get back to the album, there's a lot of really kind of fun parts that show kind of like, I feel like a little bit of the behind the scenes and just like the vibe that was going on there. When it's like at the end of Pinata's one example, when you have Freddy like just a cappella singing Outstanding. Like I love like those moments. Super fun, just gives the album a nice character. But then beyond that, I think Reilly put it a good way. It's not that it's just like a collection of singles. I think it does cohesively flow as an album, but there's not a lot of up and down at all. It's like, it's just Freddy spitting over sick beats. That's all the whole album is. There's not much of an arc or like greater purpose, which is all it needs to be. But yeah, I think in terms of like having a really like sprawling narrative album, that is not what this is. That would have to go to Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar, of course, which is, as everyone has mentioned.
Transition.
Yeah, I know. That was
seamless.
That was off the cuff. That was good. But Pimp a Butterfly is an amazing album in pretty much every facet. The writing, the concept, the production, and like the playing. Like I love sampling, as we've discussed, but I also really appreciate how with this album that is like paying so much respect to like these like cultural and like artistic movements that are created by and like spearheaded and everything by the Black community, like jazz and funk, that rather than just using samples, which could have maybe been just as cool, Kendrick actually gets Kamasi Washington and George Clinton and then more like contemporary names like Thundercat to like have their fingerprints all over this album as well. So I think that really is great, and they're all amazing musicians. So it really takes the instrumentals to like another level when you have Kendrick rapping over a freaking Thundercat bass line, and it's just the best thing ever. Oh, this is something that I always just find kind of interesting, because I hear this all get thrown around a lot with this album, and I know you said it, Zach. I don't know if anyone else said it, but influential. And I think it's kind of funny with this album, because I cannot think of a single album that has come out since that sounds remotely like this, or has even tried to. I think it is one of the most important and like best hip hop albums, bar none. But I don't think anyone has really tried or come close to like. And I guess when I hear influence, I think like, oh, it like influenced me to do this. It like inspired me in this way, and it definitely has inspired a lot of people. So maybe it's just a word choice, and maybe I'm just being like nitpicky here. And I also don't think you're wrong or anything. Like, that's just like how I see it. But yeah, I always think it's funny or I think it's interesting when people say that it's like an influential album, because I feel like it's not. I feel like it stands on its own as like a really amazing testament to like a singular artist's vision. Well, there's a lot of artists on it, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I don't think it's probably definitely influenced albums, but I don't think I can think of any album that's come close to it, like you said. I think definitely when people say influential in this case, I think just more like culturally, it's definitely a big moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like, I totally get that. I think it's just like a word choice more than anything, and it's just me being stupid. But yeah, this I don't know. I don't feel like there's like that much to say about To Pimp a Butterfly. As you pointed out, Zach, a lot has been said at this point. It's an amazing album. The boldness of Kendrick is, I guess, one thing I'll like point out. Like his like fearlessness to like cover all these really like touchy subjects that like are a huge part of like the backbone of hip hop, is like, right, talking about like racial issues and class issues and all these like things, but he really goes for it. Like, he's not afraid to like hold any punches. Like, the one that like always stands out to me the most, because I just feel like the like call out that he does like for Obama, I just think is really brave, because, you know, not a lot of people would do that, because, you know, he was a pretty popular president for some good reasons, but there's also, you know, plenty to criticize there as well. And I think the fact that Kendrick is willing to go for that, when that's not the easiest it's not the same as like writing a bar about Donald Trump. Like, literally anyone will criticize Donald Trump, but like I just respect that aspect. But like, that's just one tiny thing that he talks about, and like the many crazy places that this album takes you, and it's just like such a world that it creates. Like, it's everything about it. It's amazing. I love this album. So even though I love Pinata, I'm definitely gonna have to go with Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah, I just want to add really quick to what he was saying about like speaking on all these issues. Like, he doesn't. Yeah, I agree. He's not holding back any punches, but at the same time, it doesn't really feel most of the time like he's actively punching, if that makes sense. Like, it feels very natural, and like he's just telling some stories.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it feels like all of the punches that he's throwing are ones that you kind of inference from the story of whatever song is, you know, playing, which I think is really hard to recreate. And like you were saying about kind of the more musical side of influence, I think that's why we haven't heard a lot of, you know, sort of recreations or adaptations of this sound, because it's so hard to recreate that natural feeling with kind of this jazzy hip hop production sound. Because most artists just can't do that. They don't have the voice for it. They don't have the you know, lyricism for that. They don't have the songwriting ability for that. And they
got the jazz connections.
Yeah, well, and they certainly don't have like the, you know, the ability to put an entire project like that together, and make it flow so naturally and seamlessly, you know, in an engaging way. So.
Yeah, I think the overall feeling of it is a lot more, at least from a very unnuanced, unknowing perspective, it felt a lot more sad. There's one song where he's just like wheezing, like literally just like like the most painful kind of crying I've ever heard. And it's just more of like a deep, like, I don't know, just like kind of conveyed a lot of deeper desires rather than like I'm angry, like, you know, which I think is an easy way to feel. It's more just like deep sadness is the way that it was conveyed to me, which I thought, I mean, right on par with Circles and Mitsky. Like it just kind of hit me in the same way where it was just like, oh, ouch. Anyway, let's vote.
Are we ready? We're doing it. Okay, Zach, you're anxious. Go.
The Pimp a Butterfly. Thank you. I needed that.
Okay, you're welcome. Reilly,
The Pimp a Butterfly.
Cal,
Pimp a Butterfly.
Jake.
Butterfly.
Oh God, yeah.
We did it. We got a
Unanimous.
5-0. We all agree.
But Freddy Gibbs, please. You're still a friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod, please.
Like,
Up
Yeah.
against any other album,
Mad
up
Lib.
against any of the Kanyes, you would have won.
Mad Lib, if
Please
any
drop
of you
Mad Gibbs 3 soon.
want to come
That would
over,
be great.
do something with us, get us some content. We love you guys.
Madlib, you know, we already wrote about you. You are 100% a friend of the pod. You
Oh, yeah.
have
Oh, absolutely.
Friend
Peace
of
up.
Crave. Hell yeah.
All right.
Butterfly is just a hard one to beat.
I don't think it's hard.
I don't think Gangsta Gibbs or Madlib would disagree with that. So
Yeah.
Next week, we're gonna have a 10-hour episode.
God, we really did almost go for 4 hours, dude. Holy shit.
We've got I Need to Start a Garden by Haley Hendricks, Igor by Tyler the Creator, Crushing by Julia Jacqueline, Toy by A Giant Dog, To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, Circles by Mac Miller, Melodrama by Lorde, and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West.
These are good ass pairings, man.
Yeah, next week
I
will be
am
tough.
frankly remiss that SZA is not on this list and Kanye is. It hurts me deeply.
I feel you. I'm so sorry. When we get to next week, I want to like talk about SZA and soft sounds again because I have more things to say. And I have more things to say about A Giant Dog because I didn't say anything last week.
Yay!
We can revisit next week, a little recap.
Next week should be faster, right?
No,
We said that
No,
last
next
week.
week's gonna be
We'll
next
see.
week is
Slower
actually
if
gonna be long
anything.
because
It's
we have to get through.
exponential.
We have to get through 8 and then vote through like.
Yeah, but we've already
Four.
talked about them like
That's-
at
Like
length.
why we like them.
I think this
Yeah.
one actually will be faster. You're right. Cal.
Yeah, I
You're
hope
right.
so.
It
Not
will
with
be
me.
faster.
Hey,
Not
Zach.
with me in the room.
I'm exhausted. I'm sorry, guys. I am so tired.
Hey,
Alright,
you know what
Zach
I'm
the
gonna say?
diva.
Zach is
I
a
am.
diva, and this is also like my favorite thing that I do all week. This is so fucking
Honestly,
fun.
same.
This
I
is
have
awesome,
the
yeah.
best time. Like nothing. I want to do nothing more than talk about music for 4 hours over Zoom. Like in person would be ideal, but like this is the most fun I have. So
Yeah, I know you're
offer
visiting your like
consistently.
stupid girlfriend or whatever, Zach, but some of us are profoundly alone, and this is the most fun we ever had.
Literally,
So,
exactly. It's like this is the thing I have to look forward to. So
It's just give me this 1 week, then I'll be right there with you.
let us know how you feel on next
Yeah.
week's episode, Zach.
I can outro us. I think I can plug all of our socials. This has been the second week of our bracket challenge. Thank you for listening to Crave the Podcast. Follow us on YouTube and Spotify to get the podcast. Go to the Crave the Sound website to see our most recent podcasts and written pieces. And then follow us on Instagram to see all of our content and just get really fun updates. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far.
A lovely outro. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna plug each of our individual socials. I was like, wow, impressive. I was like, go ahead.
Follow Kalyan at
No, don't.
Kalyan on Instagram.
I'm just trying to beat the record for followers, so don't follow me.
I think Reilly and I have you beat there.
Yeah, we have nothing.
Help me out by unfollowing me.
Do we want to wave, or do we want to do something new at the end of this one?
Let's go like
Oh yeah.
Bye.
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 See you later.